You're exactly where you need to be right now. As you settle into this moment, perhaps adjusting your pillow or pulling your blanket a little closer, I want you to know that you're participating in humanity's oldest ritual. For hundreds of thousands of years, long before cities or civilizations, before writing or agriculture, humans just like you found comfort in the darkness. They gathered together, shared their knowledge, and prepared for rest. Tonight, you're joining that ancient circle. Take a deep breath with me. Feel your body sinking deeper into comfort. Your ancestors would marvel at this moment, at the safety and warmth surrounding you. But they would recognize something too, something fundamental that hasn't changed across all those millennia. The need for rest, the need for stories, the need to feel connected to something larger than yourself. Around 40,000 years ago, as the sun dipped below the African horizon, a group of Homo erectus settled around their carefully maintained fire. The sky above them blazed with more stars than you've ever seen, unpolluted by city lights stretching endlessly overhead. They had survived another day, another impossible day in a world that tried constantly to kill them. And as the flames crackled and danced, casting warm orange light across weathered faces, they found peace. Imagine yourself there with them, not as an observer, but as a member of that ancient family. Feel the warmth of the fire on your face. Smell the acrid smoke mixing with the scent of the evening meal, perhaps roasted meat or gathered roots. Hear the soft murmur of voices, a language so ancient it would be unrecognizable to you, yet somehow familiar in its rhythms and tones.
This is your family. These are your people.
Every human alive today carries their blood, their strength, their incredible resilience. They're looking at you now, these ancient survivors, and in their eyes you see something profound: recognition, acceptance, welcome. You belong here, in this circle, because their survival made your existence possible. Every challenge they faced and overcame, every adaptation their bodies made, every lesson they learned, it all lives within you. You are the answer to their dreams, the future they could never imagine but always hoped for. As you rest here tonight, safe and warm, you're honoring them. They would want this for you. After everything they endured, after all the hunger and cold and danger they survived, they would want their descendants to know peace, to know comfort, to drift into sleep without fear of predators or starvation or the 1,000 other terrors that filled their nights. But here's something beautiful. Even though your life is incomparably easier than theirs, even though you possess comforts they couldn't dream of, you still carry their strength. It's in your DNA, in your bones, in the fundamental architecture of who you are. When you face challenges, their resilience awakens. When you adapt to difficult circumstances, you're drawing on millions of years of survival wisdom. Tonight we're going to walk backward through time together. We're going to discover how Homo erectus survived conditions that would kill modern humans in minutes. We're going to learn their secrets, their wisdom, their incredible techniques for thriving in impossible circumstances. And as we explore their world, you might find yourself drifting deeper into relaxation. That's perfect. That's exactly what they would want. They survived so you could rest peacefully. Your breath is slowing now, matching the ancient rhythms of humans who lived closer to the earth, closer to the fundamental patterns of nature. Feel your heartbeat steady and calm. You're safe here, in this moment, held by the accumulated wisdom of 300,000 generations. Every breath you take is a gift they gave you through their survival. As the fire crackles and the stars wheel slowly overhead, the ancient ones are settling in for their own rest. Children curl up against their mothers, wrapped in carefully prepared animal skins. Elders sit closest to the fire, their eyes holding decades of hard-won knowledge. Young adults take turns keeping watch, alert but relaxed, trusting in the group's collective vigilance. This is how humans survived, together, connected, part of something larger than themselves, and you're part of that same story. The fire they built all those millennia ago has never truly gone out. It's been passed from generation to generation, from parent to child, from teacher to student, across impossible spans of time. Tonight that fire warms you too. Not physically perhaps, but spiritually, emotionally, connecting you to the unbroken chain of human survival. So rest easy. Let your mind wander where it will.
If you drift towards sleep, that's beautiful.
If you stay awake and curious, that's perfect too. There's no wrong way to experience this journey. The ancient ones didn't judge or measure. They simply survived, adapted, and passed their wisdom forward. Tonight, that wisdom is yours. Feel the comfort of knowing you're exactly where countless ancestors rested before you. This moment of peace, this gentle transition from wakefulness to sleep, is your birthright. It was earned through unimaginable challenges, through survival that tested the limits of human endurance. And now it's yours, freely given, asking nothing in return except that you receive it with gratitude. As we prepare to explore their incredible story, take one more deep breath. Fill your lungs the way they did after a successful hunt, after finding water in the desert, after surviving another impossible day. That breath carries their triumph, their joy, their profound relief at having made it through once again. You are breathing the same air under the same sky, connected across time by the simple miracle of survival. Welcome to their world. Welcome to your heritage. Welcome to the ancient circle where all humans belong. As you adjust your blanket, or perhaps shift slightly to find the perfect temperature, pause for a moment and appreciate how effortlessly you can control your comfort. Too warm? Adjust the covers. Too cold? Add a layer. This simple luxury would have seemed like magic to the Homo Erectus ancestors settling around their fire. Yet they didn't need thermostats or climate control to survive temperature extremes that would send modern humans to the hospital within hours. Picture the African savanna at midday, 40,000 years ago. The sun hangs directly overhead like a burning hammer, and the temperature has climbed to 120 degrees Fahrenheit. The air shimmers with heat waves, distorting the distant horizon into liquid mirages. Any modern human caught in this environment without water, without shade, without protection, would begin experiencing heat stroke within 30 minutes. Confusion would set in, coordination would fail. Within an hour or two, without intervention, death would be likely. But watch as a group of Homo erectus moves steadily across this scorched landscape. They're not frantically seeking shelter. They're not panicking or rushing. They're moving with deliberate purpose, their bodies handling the extreme heat through evolutionary adaptations that modern humans have largely lost. Their skin, nearly hairless compared to earlier hominids, allows heat to escape efficiently. Their highly developed sweat glands, more numerous and effective than any other primate, create a cooling system that works like biological air conditioning. Feel yourself there with them, your skin glistening with sweat that evaporates instantly in the dry heat, creating precious cooling across your body. You're breathing steady and controlled, despite the scorching air entering your lungs. You've learned to move during these hottest hours because that's when predators seek shade, making it safer for your group to travel. The heat that would kill a modern human in minutes is simply another condition to adapt to. Another challenge your incredible body was designed to meet, but their temperature mastery didn't end with the brutal days. As the sun sets and darkness falls across the savanna, the temperature plummets. Nighttime temperatures regularly drop to near freezing, sometimes below. The same landscape that baked at 120 degrees during the day now pulled heat from their bodies with vicious efficiency. Imagine experiencing a temperature swing of 80 degrees or more every single day of your life. Modern humans struggle when the temperature in their home drops 10 degrees. We complain, we adjust thermostats, we add layers. But our Homo erectus ancestors faced this dramatic temperature flux without manufactured clothing, without insulated homes, without any of the technologies we consider essential for survival. And they didn't just survive these conditions, they thrived in them. Their mastery came through a combination of biological adaptation and brilliant innovation. As night fell and the cold began to bite, they gathered around their greatest invention, the controlled fire. Fire management was perhaps the single most important survival skill they possessed. It wasn't simply about lighting a fire and letting it burn. It was about understanding fuel sources, knowing which woods burned hot and which burned long, managing oxygen flow, protecting flames from wind, and maintaining the fire throughout the long, cold night. Picture yourself in that nighttime camp. The fire crackles steadily, its heat creating a bubble of warmth against the surrounding cold. Your group arranges themselves in a careful pattern, maximizing the fire's warmth while ensuring everyone remains protected. Elders and children sit closest to the flames. Young adults form an outer ring, their bodies creating a windbreak, their eyes watching the darkness beyond the firelight. Animal skins, carefully prepared and maintained, wrap around shoulders and torsos, trapping body heat. But the genius goes deeper. They learn to read their environment, to understand the subtle ways landscape affects temperature. They chose campsites with natural windbreaks, rock formations that absorbed heat during the day and released it slowly at night. They positioned fires near these heat-absorbing surfaces, essentially creating ancient thermal batteries that made the night more bearable. Your own body, as you rest here tonight in perfect comfort, carries echoes of their adaptation. When you feel too warm and naturally kick off blankets, that's their heat management instinct. When you instinctively curl up when cold, you're using the same technique they perfected over millions of years. Your body remembers even if your conscious mind has forgotten. Modern humans feel uncomfortable when indoor temperatures rise above 85 degrees. We become irritable, sluggish, unable to function properly. Yet Homo erectus regularly worked, hunted, traveled, and lived in temperatures 40 degrees hotter. The difference isn't just mental toughness or willpower. Their bodies were fundamentally better adapted to temperature extremes than ours are today. Think about what that means. In gaining climate-controlled comfort, modern humanity has lost crucial physiological capabilities. Our sweat response is less efficient.
Our heat tolerance has diminished.
Our ability to function in temperature extremes has atrophied like unused muscles. We've become dependent on technology to maintain the narrow temperature range we find comfortable, while our ancestors lived confidently in conditions spanning more than 100 degrees. As you breathe slowly and deeply, feeling the perfect temperature surrounding you, feel gratitude for this comfort, but also feel a spark of pride, knowing that deep in your genetic code, the ability to handle extremes still exists. When you surprise yourself with resilience during uncomfortable heat or cold, that's them. That's their gift to you, waiting to be rediscovered. The ancient ones around that fire are settling in now, their bodies gradually relaxing as the flames push back the night's chill. A mother adjusts an animal's skin around her sleeping child. An elder adds another piece of carefully selected wood to the fire. A young adult on watch shifts position, maintaining circulation, staying alert but not tense. This is how they survived every night for hundreds of thousands of years. With skill, with knowledge, with the kind of temperature mastery that modern humans can barely comprehend. Your breath is matching theirs now, slow and steady, perfectly adapted to the temperature around you. Feel your body's natural wisdom, its ancient knowledge of how to find comfort in any condition. They survived 120-degree days so you could rest peacefully tonight. They endured freezing nights so you could know warmth. Their adaptation lives in you, ready to awaken whenever you need it. Rest now in perfect temperature. The ancient masters of heat and cold are watching over you, proud of how far their descendants have come. Perhaps there's water beside your bed right now. A glass, a bottle, readily available whenever thirst touches your awareness. This simple luxury, water on demand, represents a kind of wealth that Homo erectus couldn't have imagined. Yet they survived in conditions where water was scarce unpredictable, and sometimes absent for days at a time. Modern medical science tells us that humans can survive approximately 3 days without water before organ failure begins. Our Homo erectus ancestors regularly pushed that limit to 5, 6, even 7 days during their long migrations across dry landscapes. Picture the African savanna during the dry season. The rivers that flowed during the wet months have vanished, leaving only cracked mud and the faint memory of water. The waterholes where animals gathered are empty, exposing sun-baked clay at the bottom. The air itself seems to pull moisture from your body with every breath. This is the landscape that Homo erectus called home for hundreds of thousands of years. A modern human caught in these conditions without water begins suffering within hours. Thirst becomes overwhelming. Headaches develop. Thinking becomes clouded. Coordination fails. The body begins cannibalizing its own moisture, pulling water from blood, from cells, from anywhere it can find it. Death follows within 3 days, sometimes sooner, in extreme heat. But watch as a small group of Homo erectus moves across this waterless expanse. They're not panicked.
They're not desperate.
They're following knowledge passed down through countless generations, reading the landscape like a map, written in subtle signs invisible to modern eyes. They know where to look. They know what to look for. They know how to find water where none seems to exist. Their bodies, first of all, were better adapted to water scarcity than ours. Their kidneys functioned with greater efficiency, extracting every possible drop of moisture from waste products. Their sweating response, while crucial for temperature regulation, was also remarkably efficient, losing minimal water while providing maximum cooling. Their bodies had learned, through millions of years of evolution, to operate on less water than modern humans require. But physical adaptation was only part of their water survival mastery. The rest came from observation, from knowledge, from a kind of environmental literacy that we've almost entirely lost.
Feel yourself walking with them now, your eyes learning to see what they see.
Notice that small cluster of trees in the distance, still green while everything around them is brown and dying. Those trees signal underground water, their roots reaching down to moisture hidden beneath the surface. Watch as they approach and begin to dig. Their stone tools scrape away layers of dry earth, and 3 feet down, moisture appears. It's not flowing water, not a stream or pool.
It's simply damp soil, darker than what surrounds it.
But they know what to do. They dig deeper, creating a small hole, and slowly, over the course of hours, water seeps in.
Not much, perhaps a few cups.
But enough. Enough to sustain life. Enough to continue the journey. Their water wisdom extended far beyond finding hidden sources. They learned to read animal behavior, understanding that certain species could lead them to water. Watch a group of doves flying purposefully in the morning or evening, their flight path direct, rather than meandering. They're flying to water, and Homo erectus learned to follow. Observe the tracks of large animals, the patterns telling stories about where water might be found. They discovered that certain plants held water in their roots or stems. Succulent species could be carefully harvested for their precious moisture. Some plants indicated the presence of underground water, even when no surface water was visible. This knowledge, accumulated over hundreds of thousands of years, represented a kind of living encyclopedia of survival that was constantly updated and refined. Feel your own thirst being quenched, even now as your body processes the water you drank earlier today.
Modern humans panic at the thought of going even a day without water.
Our culture reinforces constant hydration, telling us to drink before we're thirsty, to consume water throughout the day. There's wisdom in that, certainly. But we've also lost the understanding that the human body, properly adapted, is capable of remarkable water conservation. During migration periods, when Homo erectus groups walked for weeks across unfamiliar territory, water management became critical. They learned to drink deeply when water was available, their bodies storing and utilizing moisture with incredible efficiency. They learned to recognize the signs of dangerous dehydration and to slow their pace conserve energy, and make strategic decisions about when to travel and when to rest. Think about the psychological resilience this required. Modern humans become anxious when we forget our water bottle at the gym. We feel genuine distress at the thought of being without access to water for even a few hours. But our ancestors walked for days through waterless landscapes, maintaining calm, trusting their knowledge, believing in their ability to find what they needed. The secret wasn't just physical adaptation or environmental knowledge, though both were crucial. It was also trust. Trust in the group's collective wisdom. Trust in the elders who remembered the last time the group traversed this path. Trust in their own bodies to signal when rest was needed, when water was critical, when pushing forward was still safe. As you rest here tonight, your body perfectly hydrated. Take a moment to appreciate the incredible water abundance surrounding you. Plumbing, reservoirs, water treatment plants, all ensuring that clean water flows whenever you turn a tap. This infrastructure represents a triumph of civilization, but it's built on the foundation of water wisdom that Homo Erectus developed through brutal necessity. Your body still carries their water conservation abilities, though you've likely never needed to fully activate them. If circumstances ever required it, those ancient capabilities would awaken. Your kidneys would become more efficient. Your body would learn to operate on less. The survival instincts developed over hundreds of thousands of years don't disappear in a few generations of abundance. The group around the fire is settling deeper into rest now. Tomorrow they'll need to find water again, to read the landscape once more, to trust their knowledge and experience.
But tonight they rest.
They found enough water to sustain them. They've survived another day in conditions that would kill modern humans. And as they close their eyes, they carry forward the unbroken chain of survival that eventually leads to you. Breathe deeply. Feel moisture in the air around you. Feel gratitude for the water that nourishes your body even now. The ancient water finders are proud of you. When did you last eat? A few hours ago, perhaps? Maybe you enjoyed dinner not long before settling into bed. Your stomach is satisfied, your body nourished, your next meal already anticipated. This constant availability of food is so normal to modern life that we rarely pause to appreciate how extraordinary it is. But imagine a different reality, one where Homo erectus lived for hundreds of thousands of years. A reality where eating was never guaranteed, where days or even weeks might pass between substantial meals, where your body needed to function at full capacity even while running on empty. Modern nutritional science tells us that humans begin experiencing serious cognitive and physical decline after just 24 hours without food. Concentration wavers, mood darkens, physical strength diminishes. By 3 days without food, most modern humans are severely compromised, weak and struggling to perform even basic tasks. Yet Homo erectus regularly functioned for 7 to 10 days without eating, maintaining the strength and mental clarity needed to hunt, to travel, to survive. Picture the reality of their existence. Food was never sitting in a refrigerator waiting to be consumed. It had to be found, caught, gathered, processed, and sometimes, despite all their skill and effort, it simply wasn't there.
A hunt could fail. Animal migrations could shift unexpectedly.
Seasonal changes could reduce plant availability. When food scarcity came, and it came regularly, their bodies needed to adapt. Their metabolic flexibility was extraordinary, something modern humans have largely lost. Your body right now operates primarily on glucose, expecting regular food intake to maintain blood sugar levels. When food is delayed even slightly, you might experience hunger pangs, irritability, difficulty concentrating. These are signs that your metabolism has become dependent on constant fuel. But Homo erectus bodies could switch fuel sources with remarkable efficiency. When food was abundant, they could consume and store significant amounts as fat, building reserves for inevitable scarcity. When food became scarce, their metabolism would shift, efficiently burning those fat stores while maintaining energy levels and mental clarity. This wasn't starvation in the sense of weakness and decline. It was metabolic adaptation, their bodies running on a different fuel system. Feel yourself in their world now. Imagine it's been 5 days since the last substantial meal. Your group has been traveling, searching, but the animals have moved on, and plant food is scarce in this area. Your stomach is empty, but you're not weak. You're not confused or incapacitated. Your body has shifted into fat-burning mode, and you're capable of the sustained effort needed to find food. This is survival at its most fundamental level. Watch as your group spreads out, reading the landscape for any opportunity. Some members track animal signs, looking for fresh droppings or disturbed vegetation that might indicate nearby prey. Others scan for edible plants, their knowledge spanning hundreds of species, understanding which parts are nutritious, which are poisonous, which require preparation to be safely consumed. The search is methodical, efficient, driven by accumulated knowledge rather than desperate panic. Their relationship with food was completely different from ours. Modern humans eat by the clock, consuming meals at scheduled times whether truly hungry or not. We've been taught that regular eating maintains health, and in our abundant environment that's reasonable advice. But our ancestors ate opportunistically, consuming large amounts when available, going without when necessary. Their bodies were designed for this feast and famine existence. Consider the psychological aspect as well. Modern humans become emotionally distressed when hungry. We interpret hunger signals as urgent problems requiring immediate solution. We feel genuine suffering when meals are delayed. Entire industries exist to ensure we never experience real hunger. But Homo erectus lived with hunger as a constant companion, neither panicking nor suffering, simply accepting it as part of life's rhythm. Their hunting success rate was probably less than 30%. Most hunts failed. Most days didn't include meat protein. Yet they persisted, maintaining hope and effort, trusting that eventually success would come. This psychological resilience, this ability to maintain motivation through repeated failure and ongoing hunger, represents a kind of mental toughness that modern comfortable life rarely requires. When food was finally secured, whether through successful hunt or fortunate gathering, they knew how to maximize its value. They could consume remarkable amounts in one sitting. Their stomachs and digestive systems adapted to process large meals efficiently. They wasted nothing, utilizing every part of an animal, every nutritious plant. Their knowledge of food preparation, even without modern cooking techniques, allowed them to extract maximum nutrition from whatever they found. The fat stores they built during abundant times weren't just energy reserves. They were survival insurance, biological savings accounts that could sustain life when environmental conditions turned harsh. Modern humans often view body fat negatively as something to minimize for aesthetic reasons. But for Homo erectus, appropriate fat storage meant the difference between surviving a lean season or perishing. Think about what happens to your own body when you miss a single meal. You might experience headache, shakiness, difficulty focusing, irritability. These symptoms arise because your metabolism lacks the flexibility to easily switch fuel sources. You've been trained through constant food availability to expect regular glucose input. Your body has forgotten how to efficiently burn stored fat for energy. But deep in your genetic code, that flexibility still exists. People who practice extended fasting often report that after an adaptation period, hunger diminishes and energy actually increases. They're rediscovering temporarily the metabolic flexibility that Homo erectus lived with constantly. The capability hasn't disappeared. It's simply dormant, waiting to be reactivated if circumstances require it. As you rest here tonight, your body processing your last meal, converting nutrients into energy and cellular repair, appreciate this abundance. Appreciate that you can eat until satisfied, that your next meal is predictable, that genuine hunger is optional rather than inevitable. This is the world they struggled to create for you, the future they unknowingly built through their survival. The ancient ones around the fire have finally secured food today. A successful hunt means everyone eats and the satisfaction is profound. Not just physical satiation, but emotional relief, the joy of survival confirmed once again. As they settle into rest, their bodies efficiently processing the nutrition they've gained, they carry forward the metabolic wisdom that eventually allows you to exist. Breathe slowly. Feel nourished. Feel grateful. The ancient hunger survivors made your fullness possible. As you lie in your safe space right now, take a moment to notice what's not there.
No eyes watching from the darkness. No movement in the shadows.
No predators circling, calculating whether you might be vulnerable. The absence of danger is so complete that you probably never even think about it. But for Homo erectus, living among the most powerful predators Earth has ever produced, safety was never guaranteed. Every sunset brought new threats. Every moment of vulnerability could mean death. Imagine the African savanna at dusk, that liminal time when day hunters retreat and night predators emerge. The fading light creates deep shadows across the landscape, and in those shadows lions begin to stir. Not the tourist attraction lions observed from safe vehicles in modern game parks. Wild lions, hungry and opportunistic, weighing over 400 pounds of muscle and claw and perfect killing efficiency. A single lion could kill an adult human in seconds. A pride of lions working together with the coordinated intelligence that makes them apex predators could devastate a small group of Homo erectus.
And lions were just one threat.
Leopards, perfectly adapted to hunting in darkness, capable of climbing trees and ambushing from above. Hyenas with jaws powerful enough to crush bone, working in packs with disturbing intelligence. Crocodiles waiting in rivers.
Venomous snakes hidden in grass.
The African landscape was, quite literally, designed to kill humans. Modern humans panic at the sight of a spider in their home. We call pest control for a mouse. We feel genuine distress at finding a snake in our yard. These responses aren't irrational. We're programmed to be wary of potential threats. But consider the difference in scale. Homo erectus lived every single day, and especially every single night, surrounded by creatures that viewed them as prey. Feel yourself there now, as darkness settles over the savanna. Your group has gathered around the fire, and that fire is far more than a source of warmth and light. It's the primary defense against predators. Watch how it's been carefully positioned, with clear sight lines in all directions, with your backs protected by rocks or dense vegetation. Watch how fuel has been gathered and stacked nearby, ensuring the flames never die during the long night ahead. The psychology of living with constant predator threat shaped everything about their behavior. They never wandered alone. Individual vulnerability was too great. Group coordination became essential, with multiple sets of eyes watching, multiple minds assessing threats. They developed communication systems for danger, sounds and gestures that could instantly alert the entire group without alerting the predator. Their understanding of predator behavior was sophisticated and constantly refined. They knew that lions typically hunt at dawn and dusk. They knew that leopards prefer ambush tactics. They knew which trees were safe to climb if pursued, which offered escape routes, which were too weak to support weight. They could read tracks and determine not just which predator had passed, but how recently and in which direction. Weapon development was driven largely by predator defense. The wooden spears they crafted weren't primarily for hunting. They were for protection, for creating distance between themselves and creatures whose natural weapons, claws, teeth, speed, strength, far exceeded human capabilities. A coordinated group of humans with spears could potentially drive off even large predators, not through superior force, but through strategy and courage. But weapons were only part of their defense strategy. They learned to read landscapes for safety. They chose sleeping sites with natural defenses, elevated positions where approaches could be observed, areas where predators would have to expose themselves before attacking. They developed sleeping arrangements that maximized group safety, with adults forming protective rings around children. with the strongest members positioned to respond to threats. Think about the psychological toll this constant vigilance required. Modern humans develop anxiety disorders from perceived threats that rarely materialize. We experience stress from workplace conflicts or social situations. But Homo erectus lived with genuine, immediate, lethal threats every single day of their lives, and they didn't break down. They didn't develop crippling fear. They maintained the mental stability needed to function, to thrive, to raise children in an environment where relaxing vigilance, even briefly, could mean death. Their courage was extraordinary. Not the courage of recklessness or bravado, but the courage of acceptance. They accepted that they lived in a dangerous world. They accepted that predators were part of the landscape, part of the ecosystem they inhabited. They didn't rage against this reality or wish for a different existence. They simply adapted, developing strategies to minimize risk while continuing to live fully. Consider what happened when members of the group were lost to predators. Because it happened. Despite all their skill and vigilance and strategy, sometimes predators succeeded. Children were taken.
Adults hunting alone were ambushed.
The psychological resilience to continue living after witnessing such losses, to not become paralyzed by fear, represents a kind of mental toughness that modern comfortable life rarely requires. Fire management took on life or death importance in this context. A fire that went out during the night left the group vulnerable. So they developed sophisticated fuel management systems, understanding which woods burned slowly and could sustain flames through darkness, which created smoke that additionally deterred predators, which were readily available in their environment. Maintaining fire became a sacred responsibility, passed from person to person through the night. As you rest here in complete safety, walls surrounding you, locks securing your doors, perhaps even security systems monitoring your space, feel the profound gift of this protection. Feel gratitude for the civilization that has pushed predators so far from human experience that most of us will never encounter a truly dangerous animal. But also feel a spark of the courage your ancestors possessed, the alertness, the awareness, the refusal to be paralyzed by fear. The group around the ancient fire is settling into their nighttime routine now. Adults have organized the watch schedule. Children are secured in the safest positions. Weapons are within reach. The fire burns steadily, its light creating a protective circle against the darkness. And in that darkness, glowing eyes reflect the firelight briefly before moving on, searching for easier prey. Your ancestors survived impossible danger so you could rest in perfect safety. Their vigilance lives in you still, ready to awaken if ever needed. But tonight, right now, you can release that vigilance. You can let your guard down completely. You can drift towards sleep, knowing that no predators hunt you. The ancient ones stand watch, as they always have, protecting you across time. Your body is healing right now, even as you rest. Minor damage from your day, small cellular injuries, microscopic tears in muscle tissue, all being quietly repaired by biological systems you're barely aware of. This healing happens automatically, supported by nutrition, rest, and the complex medical knowledge that stands ready should serious injury occur. Antibiotics for infections, surgery for severe trauma, pain medication for suffering. You live in an age where even serious injuries are often survivable with proper treatment. Now imagine a different reality. Imagine a world where there are no antibiotics, no surgery, no pain medication, no medical intervention of any kind. Imagine suffering a deep gash from a stone tool accident, a broken bone from a fall, an infection from a minor cut. Imagine knowing that your survival depends entirely on your body's natural healing capacity and whatever primitive medical knowledge your group possesses. This was the reality for Homo erectus, and somehow they survived injuries that would kill modern humans without medical care. The archaeological evidence is remarkable. Skeletal remains of Homo erectus show healed fractures, evidence of survived infections, signs of serious injuries that knitted back together.
These weren't lucky accidents.
These were survivors who lived weeks or months beyond serious trauma, their bodies repairing damage that should have been fatal, their groups providing care that supported recovery. Feel yourself back in that ancient world. You're on a hunt moving through rocky terrain. When your foot slips, you fall hard and pain explodes through your left arm. The bone has broken, you can feel it, the unnatural movement, the stabbing sensation with every breath. In the modern world, you'd be rushed to an emergency room, x-rayed, set in a cast, given pain medication, prescribed physical therapy. But here, 40,000 years ago, your survival depends on your group's collective knowledge and your body's incredible resilience. Watch as your group gathers around, their faces serious but not panicked.
They've seen this before. They know what to do.
Hands gently probe the injury, feeling for the break, assessing the damage. Someone runs to gather specific plants, knowledge passed down through generations about which species reduce pain, which fight infection, which promote bone healing. Others search for straight branches of particular woods, understanding which have the right flexibility and strength for splinting. The pain is intense, waves of it washing through you with every movement. But you've learned, as all Homo erectus learned, to breathe through pain, to remain conscious and present rather than letting it overwhelm you. Pain is information, your body telling you what's damaged and how serious the injury is. You listen to it, respect it, but don't let it break you. Your group works with practiced efficiency. The bone is carefully realigned, a process that brings fresh waves of agony but is essential for proper healing. Plant poultices are applied, their natural compounds reducing inflammation and fighting potential infection. Splints are carefully positioned and secured with strips of leather or plant fiber. You're given medicines to chew, bark, and roots with natural analgesic properties. They don't eliminate the pain, but they take the edge off, making it bearable. What happens next is the remarkable part.
Over the following weeks, your bone heals.
Without antibiotics, infection is fought off by your immune system supported by plant medicines. Without surgery, the bone knits back together, guided by the splinting and your body's natural repair mechanisms. Without physical therapy, you gradually regain strength and mobility through careful, progressive use. Modern medical science would tell you this is impossible, or at least highly unlikely. Compound fractures should become infected. Improper bone setting should lead to permanent disability. The pain alone should be debilitating. Yet archaeological evidence proves it happened regularly. Homo erectus survived serious injuries and lived to hunt again, to continue contributing to their groups, to pass their genetics forward. Their immune systems were extraordinary compared to modern humans. Constant exposure to environmental microbes, parasites, and pathogens had created supercharged immune responses. What would give a modern human a life-threatening infection might cause only minor inflammation in Homo erectus. Their bodies had been trained through brutal necessity to fight microbial invaders with incredible efficiency. But physical healing was only part of the picture. The psychological component was equally important. Modern humans often develop chronic pain conditions from injuries, psychological patterns where pain persists even after physical healing is complete. We catastrophize injuries, fearing permanent disability, imagining worst-case scenarios. This psychological overlay often impairs healing. Homo erectus couldn't afford that luxury. They accepted injury as part of life's risk, treated it seriously but without emotional drama, focused on recovery with patience and trust in their body's capabilities. When someone was injured, the group provided care without resentment, understanding that today's injured hunter might be tomorrow's healer, that survival depended on mutual support. Think about the plant knowledge required for their healing practices. They lived in environments with thousands of plant species, and through careful observation and experimentation across generations, they learned which ones had medicinal properties, which leaves reduced fever, which roots fought infection, which barks dulled pain, which saps promoted wound healing. This knowledge was precious, carefully preserved, constantly tested and refined. Their wound care techniques were surprisingly sophisticated. They understood the importance of cleaning injuries using water and specific plant extracts with antiseptic properties. They knew that some wounds needed to be left open to drain while others should be bound closed. They understood that infection showed specific signs: heat, redness, swelling, pus, and they had treatments targeted at these symptoms. As you rest here tonight, your body engaged in its automatic healing processes. Feel gratitude for the medical infrastructure surrounding you, but also feel wonder at the healing capabilities your body possesses naturally. Those capabilities, developed over millions of years, are still present. Your immune system still fights infections. Your bones still knit together. Your wounds still close and heal. The same biological magic that kept Homo erectus alive operates in you. The ancient injured one by the fire is healing now, supported by the group's care and their body's incredible resilience. The pain has diminished over the weeks.
Strength slowly returns.
In a few more weeks they'll hunt again, perhaps moving a bit differently, perhaps forever carrying signs of the injury, but alive, survived, continuing the chain that eventually leads to you. Breathe deeply. Feel your body's wisdom. The ancient healers watch over you still. Your immune system is working silently right now, identifying and neutralizing threats you're completely unaware of. Bacteria, viruses, parasites. Your body encounters them constantly and manages them efficiently with biological defenses developed over millions of years. But you also live in a world where serious infections can be treated with antibiotics, where vaccines prevent deadly diseases, where medical science stands ready to intervene when your natural defenses prove insufficient. Homo erectus had none of these protections. They lived in constant contact with parasites that could cause debilitating illness. They encountered bacteria that could turn simple wounds into life-threatening infections. They faced viral diseases that swept through populations, killing the vulnerable.
And they survived.
Not just occasionally or accidentally, but routinely enough to build populations to spread across continents, to become the most successful human species in history. Picture their daily reality. Water sources were shared with countless animals and often contaminated with parasites. Food, especially meat, carried bacteria and parasites that modern food safety regulations are designed to eliminate. The very soil they walked on, the plants they gathered, the animals they hunted, everything carried potential disease vectors. Modern humans visiting these environments, even briefly, typically fall ill despite precautions. Yet Homo erectus lived their entire lives in this pathogen-rich landscape. Their immune systems were extraordinary, trained from birth through constant exposure. Modern parents work hard to keep environments clean, to limit children's exposure to germs. This creates healthier childhoods in many ways, but it also means modern immune systems don't develop the same robust, broad-spectrum defensive capabilities. Homo erectus children were exposed to everything, and those whose immune systems could adapt survived, passing those powerful defensive genetics forward. Feel yourself in their world now. You've been bitten by an insect carrying parasites. In the modern world, this might lead to malaria or sleeping sickness, diseases that require medical treatment to survive. But your Homo erectus body responds differently. Your immune system recognizes the invasion quickly, mounts a powerful response, fights back with an intensity modern immune systems rarely achieve. You'll feel ill, certainly. Fever, fatigue, discomfort. But your body will win this battle as it's won countless others. Their herbal medicine knowledge extended far beyond wound care. They understood which plants fought internal infections, which reduced fever, which purged parasites from the digestive system, which supported immune function. This pharmaceutical knowledge, accumulated over hundreds of thousands of years, represented a complete medical system built entirely from observation and experimentation. Watch as an elder prepares medicine for a sick child. Specific bark is stripped from a particular tree, crushed into powder, mixed with water, into a bitter drink. The compounds in this bark have antimicrobial properties, fighting the infection that's causing the child's fever. The elder doesn't understand the biochemistry, doesn't know about bacteria or immune responses, but they know through generations of experience that this treatment works. The group's disease management went beyond individual treatment. They understood, perhaps not consciously, but through observed patterns, that illness could spread. Sick individuals were often separated slightly from the main group, cared for, but kept at distance to protect the healthy. This wasn't cruelty. The sick person was still fed, still checked on, still valued. But the group's survival depended on preventing disease spread, and they developed practices that accomplished this. Think about the psychological aspect of living with constant disease threat. Modern humans panic during pandemics, experiencing anxiety and fear, even when personal risk is relatively low. We have access to information, to medical care, to protective measures, yet we struggle with the psychological toll. Homo erectus lived with disease as a constant presence, watching children die from infections, losing group members to mysterious illnesses, never knowing when sickness might strike. And they maintained psychological stability through it all. Their response to death from disease was pragmatic, but not cold. Grief was real, mourning was genuine, but it didn't break them. They accepted mortality as part of existence, honored the dead, and continued surviving. This balance between emotional connection and psychological resilience represents a sophistication that modern, comfortable life rarely requires. The genetic evidence is fascinating. Modern humans whose ancestry traces back through regions where Homo erectus populations thrived often show signs of inherited immune advantages, resistance to certain parasites, more robust responses to particular pathogens. The disease warfare their ancestors survived shaped the immune capabilities we inherit today. Consider the diseases that were endemic in their environment. Parasitic worms living in intestines, stealing nutrition but not quite killing the host. Bacterial infections causing periodic illness but rarely fatal due to strong immune responses. Viral diseases that would be devastating to modern humans but that their bodies could fight successfully. They lived with microbial loads that would hospitalize modern humans, and they thrived. Their gut microbiomes were extraordinarily diverse compared to modern humans. All those environmental microbes, all that exposure, created digestive systems populated with thousands of bacterial species. This diversity meant better digestion, stronger immune function, improved overall health. Modern humans with sanitized food and antibiotic exposure have lost much of this microbial diversity, and we're only now beginning to understand what that loss means for health. As you rest here tonight, your immune system quietly working, feel appreciation for the vaccines and antibiotics available if you need them, but also feel wonder at your body's natural defensive capabilities inherited from ancestors who survived without any medical assistance. Your immune system carries their strength, their resilience, their ability to fight and win against microbial invaders. The group around the fire includes someone recovering from illness. A few days ago, fever consumed them, but their body fought back. The herbal medicines helped. The group's care supported recovery. Now they're weak but improving, sitting quietly by the fire, regaining strength. In a few more days, they'll be fully recovered, their immune system having added another victory to its memory, ready for the next challenge. Breathe health in.
Breathe illness out.
Feel your body's ancient warrior spirit, trained through millions of years of microbial warfare, still protecting you tonight. The ancient disease warriors made your health possible. Your mind is settling as you rest here, releasing the small stresses of your day. Perhaps work worries, relationship concerns, financial anxiety, the endless mental chatter that characterizes modern consciousness. These stresses feel real, feel significant, and they are to you. But place them against the mental challenges Homo erectus faced daily, the psychological resilience required simply to continue existing, and a different perspective emerges. Imagine the psychological reality of their world. You wake each morning uncertain if you'll eat today. Your children face mortality rates above 50% before age 5. Every person you love might die from injury, predator attack, or disease at any moment. Your own death is not a distant theoretical concern, but an immediate possibility every single day. And despite all this, you must remain mentally stable enough to make complex decisions, to cooperate with your group, to maintain hope and motivation. Modern psychology tells us that humans are poorly equipped to handle chronic stress. We develop anxiety disorders, depression, post-traumatic stress from experiences far less severe than daily Homo Erectus life. We require therapy, medication, extensive support systems to manage psychological distress. Yet our ancestors lived with stress levels that would break most modern minds, and they functioned. Not just survived, but maintained the mental clarity needed for complex problem-solving, tool creation, and social cooperation. Feel yourself in their world now, experiencing a typical day's psychological challenges. You're hungry, have been for days, but you maintain the focus needed to track animals across difficult terrain. You're aware that predators might be watching, but you don't panic or become paralyzed by fear. A child in your group died last week. The grief is real and present, but you continue functioning because your group depends on you. This is psychological resilience at a level modern humans rarely comprehend. Their stress management techniques were necessarily sophisticated. They couldn't make therapy appointments or take medication. They had to develop internal resources, group support systems, and cultural practices that maintained mental health despite impossible circumstances. Storytelling served this function, processing difficult experiences by converting them into narratives that could be shared and understood. Ritual provided structure and meaning, transforming chaos into something comprehensible. Watch as the group gathers around the evening fire, not just for warmth and protection, but for psychological restoration. Stories are shared, experiences processed, difficult emotions given voice and acknowledgement. A mother speaks of the child she lost, her grief witnessed by the group, her pain validated and shared. This communal processing prevented the kind of isolating psychological damage that can destroy mental health. Their relationship with fear was fundamentally different from ours. Modern humans often view fear as something to be eliminated, a negative emotion to avoid. We take medications to reduce anxiety, structure our lives to minimize fear-inducing situations, see fearlessness as an ideal state. But Homo erectus understood that fear was information, a survival tool that needed to be listened to but not obeyed absolutely. They felt fear when facing predators, but they didn't let it paralyze them. They acknowledged fear when hunting dangerous animals, but they moved forward anyway. They experienced anxiety about food scarcity, but they channeled it into motivated searching rather than helpless despair. Fear was a companion, not a master, informing decisions without controlling them. Think about the mental toughness required to continue trying after repeated failure. Most hunts failed. Most days didn't provide enough food. Most weeks included some form of loss or setback. Yet they maintained motivation, maintained belief that effort would eventually succeed, maintained hope despite evidence suggesting hopelessness. This psychological endurance, this refusal to give up, represents mental strength that modern, comfortable life rarely develops. Their present moment awareness was extraordinary by necessity. Survival required absolute attention to the current environment. The sound of a distant bird might signal danger. A shift in wind direction might carry crucial scent information. A subtle change in animal behavior might indicate a hunting opportunity. They couldn't afford to be lost in rumination about the past or anxiety about the future. Presence wasn't a meditation practice, it was survival necessity. Modern mindfulness practices try to teach this present moment awareness, and practitioners often report reduced stress and improved mental health. But we're trying to relearn what Homo erectus lived naturally. Their consciousness was rooted in the immediate, in direct sensory experience, in the here and now. This created a kind of mental stability that our past and future-focused modern consciousness often lacks. the loss they experienced would break most modern people. Children died regularly. Hunting accidents killed productive group members. Childbirth was extremely dangerous. Predator attacks, infections, injuries, the sources of mortality were endless. Modern humans who lose a child often never fully recover psychologically. We're encouraged to grieve extensively, to seek therapy, to take whatever time we need. Homo erectus mothers who lost children had to continue functioning immediately. Not because they didn't grieve, the grief was real, but because survival demanded it. Their emotional range was likely similar to ours, but their emotional regulation was far superior. They felt joy deeply when food was abundant, when hunts succeeded, when children were born healthy. They felt grief profoundly when losses occurred. They felt fear intensely when danger threatened. But they didn't become stuck in any emotional state. They moved through emotions fluidly, experiencing them fully but not being controlled by them. As you rest here tonight, your mind releasing its small worries, feel gratitude for the psychological comfort of your life. Feel appreciation for the therapy and support available if you struggle. But also feel the ancient mental toughness living in your DNA, waiting to be called upon if ever needed. Your ancestors survived impossible psychological challenges, and that strength is your inheritance. The group around the fire is settling into evening calm. The day's stresses are being released through shared stories and communal presence. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, new fears, new grief perhaps. But tonight there's peace. Not because their world is safe or their future certain, but because they've mastered the art of being present, of finding calm within chaos, of maintaining hope despite everything. Breathe slowly.
Release your worries.
The ancient ones carried far heavier burdens and found peace anyway. Their mental fortitude flows through you, available whenever you need it. Rest in ancient strength. Your body is at rest right now, perhaps having walked a few thousand steps today, maybe having climbed some stairs, certainly nothing that pushed you to physical limits. Modern humans are encouraged to walk 10,000 steps daily for health, and many struggle to achieve even that modest goal. But imagine a different kind of movement, a different relationship with distance and endurance. Imagine walking as not just exercise or transportation, but as the fundamental rhythm of existence itself. Homo erectus walked out of Africa. Not in vehicles, not with maps, not with any certainty about where they were going or what they would find. They walked across an entire continent, through deserts that killed the unprepared, over mountains that seemed impassable, across rivers that drowned the unlucky. Then they kept walking, spreading across Asia, eventually reaching distant shores that no human had ever seen. This wasn't a journey of weeks or months. It was a multi-generational migration spanning thousands of years, each generation walking farther than the last. Picture what this means practically. 15 to 20 miles of walking every single day, not on paved paths or in comfortable shoes, but across rough terrain, through thorns and rocks and mud, barefoot, or with minimal foot protection.
Carrying children too young to walk the distance.
Carrying tools and weapons and whatever food could be preserved. Maintaining this pace day after day, week after week, month after month, while also hunting and gathering and surviving. Modern ultramarathon runners train extensively to cover similar distances, and they do it for single events with massive support systems. Aid stations provide water and food.
Medical teams stand ready.
The route is marked and planned. Yet they still frequently fail, their bodies breaking down, their minds giving up. Homo erectus did this every day for their entire lives, without any support system beyond their group's collective knowledge. Feel yourself walking with them now. The sun rises and the group begins moving. Children are lifted onto shoulders or walk alongside, learning endurance through necessity. Elders set a sustainable pace, their experience preventing the exhaustion that comes from moving too quickly. Young adults scout ahead, reading the landscape, searching for water sources and food opportunities. This is coordinated movement, a traveling community rather than individuals. Their navigation skills were extraordinary. No GPS, no maps, no compasses. They navigated using the sun's position, star patterns at night, landscape features, seasonal patterns of animal migration, and accumulated knowledge passed down through generations. When moving through unknown territory, they observed constantly, creating mental maps, noting landmarks, ensuring they could potentially retrace their path if needed. But much of their long-distance migration moved them into lands no Homo erectus had ever seen. They were truly exploring, moving into the unknown, gambling that water and food would be available ahead. Sometimes that gamble failed and groups perished, but often enough it succeeded, and humans spread across environments from tropical forests to temperate grasslands to semi-arid regions. Think about the psychological commitment this required. Modern humans struggle to start exercise programs that require 30 minutes a few times per week. We begin with enthusiasm but quickly lose motivation when results aren't immediate. Yet Homo erectus maintained the motivation to walk enormous distances without knowing what they would find, without any guarantee of success, driven by population pressure, resource scarcity, or perhaps simple human curiosity. Their physical adaptations for walking were remarkable. Their bodies were literally designed for efficient, long-distance bipedal locomotion. Long legs relative to body size, optimized for covering ground efficiently. Feet with arches that acted like springs, storing and releasing energy with each step. Skeletal structures that minimized energy expenditure during sustained walking. They were walking machines refined through millions of years of evolution. Modern humans have largely lost this walking capability. We drive, we take elevators, we minimize physical effort whenever possible. Our bodies are the same structurally, but our conditioning is completely different. We've become adapted to sedentary life, and attempting to walk 20 miles in a day would leave most modern humans injured and exhausted. But the capability still exists genetically, waiting to be redeveloped if needed. The migration itself tells us something profound about human nature. We're not content to stay in one place, even when that place provides everything we need. We're driven to explore, to see what's beyond the horizon, to expand into new territories. This drive, which eventually led humans to every corner of Earth and eventually even off the planet, was alive in Homo erectus. They walked because something in human nature demands movement, exploration, expansion. Watch as the sun sets and the walking group makes camp. They've covered perhaps 18 miles today, and they'll cover similar distances tomorrow and the day after. Some days will be harder, requiring mountain crossings or river fording or desert traversing. Some days will be easier, following valleys or ancient animal trails. But the walking continues, inexorable, generation after generation. Children born during migration never know a permanent home. They grow up walking, learning to cover distance before they can form permanent memories. By the time they're teenagers, they've walked thousands of miles, their bodies hardened by constant movement, their minds adapted to nomadic existence. This is life itself. Not a journey with a destination, but continuous movement as the natural state of being. The elderly in the group are remarkable. In modern societies, we associate aging with declining mobility, with walkers and wheelchairs and assisted living. But Homo erectus elders who survived into their 40s or 50s had been walking their entire lives, their bodies maintained by constant use. They often walked until they couldn't anymore. And when they finally fell behind, the group faced heartbreaking decisions about whether survival required moving on without them. As you rest here tonight, your body still and comfortable, your location permanent and secure. Feel gratitude for the stability of modern life. Feel appreciation that you can stay in one place, that you don't need to walk endless miles tomorrow. But also feel wonder at your body's capabilities, at the endurance living dormant in your muscles and bones and cardiovascular system, inherited from ancestors who walked continents. The ancient travelers are making camp now, their day's journey complete. Tomorrow they'll walk again, farther from their birthplace, deeper into unknown lands, carrying humanity forward one step at a time. Their movement made your stillness possible. Their endless walking led eventually to settled civilization, to cities and homes and beds where you can rest without moving. Breathe deeply. Feel your body's gratitude for stillness. The ancient walkers carried you here across impossible distances. Your hand rests near your phone right now, a device containing more computing power than existed in the entire world just decades ago. Around you are countless other tools, lights, climate control, perhaps a television or computer. You're surrounded by technological sophistication that would seem like magic to anyone from even a century ago. But here's something remarkable. The fundamental cognitive capability that created all this technology was the same capability that Homo Erectus used to create their tools nearly 2 million years ago. Picture a Homo Erectus, individual sitting by the fire, a piece of volcanic rock in one hand, a hammerstone in the other. Watch as they strike precisely, controlled blows that chip away flakes, gradually revealing the shape hidden within the stone. This isn't random hitting. This is skilled craftsmanship, requiring understanding of stone properties, three-dimensional visualization, planning, and refined motor control. They're creating a hand axe, and the design they're working toward has remained essentially unchanged for over 1 million years. Think about what that means. 1 million years of the same basic tool design. Modern technology becomes obsolete in years, sometimes months. We constantly innovate, constantly change, constantly seek improvement. Yet the Homo erectus hand axe remained optimal for so long that generation after generation spanning 1 million years saw no need to fundamentally change it. This wasn't primitive stagnation. This was perfection achieved and maintained. Feel the weight of the stone in your hand. Feel how it's been shaped to fit perfectly, the balance point aligned so it can be wielded with maximum efficiency and minimum effort. One edge is sharp enough to cut through thick hide. The opposite end is blunt enough to serve as a hammer. The design is symmetrical, aesthetically pleasing, demonstrating that even these ancient toolmakers appreciated beauty alongside functionality. Their toolmaking represented genuine understanding of material science. Though they couldn't have articulated it in those terms, they knew that volcanic glass flaked with razor sharpness but broke easily. They knew that certain types of flint held edges well and could be worked into complex shapes. They knew that different stones required different striking angles, different force levels, different techniques. This knowledge was accumulated through millions of individual observations and experiments across countless generations. Watch as an elder teaches a young person to make tools. No written instructions exist, no diagrams or manuals. The teaching happens through demonstration, through patient repetition, through allowing the learner to fail and try again. The young person will spend years mastering this skill, their hands learning through thousands of practice strikes, their mind developing the spatial understanding needed to see finished tools within rough stones. But stone tools were only the beginning of their technological sophistication. Fire control represents perhaps an even more significant achievement. Imagine the cognitive leap required to master fire, to understand that this dangerous, destructive force could be controlled and used, to figure out friction methods for creating flames from nothing but wood and effort, to understand which materials burned well, which created too much smoke, which could be transported as embers to start new fires elsewhere. Feel yourself creating fire now using their methods. 2 pieces of wood, one soft and one hard, rubbed together with precisely the right pressure and speed. Your hands are already tired, but you continue, maintaining the rhythm, focusing on the friction point. Smoke begins to appear, a crucial sign. You continue, the smoke thickens, and suddenly there's a tiny glowing ember. Carefully, reverently, you transfer it to prepared tinder, dry grass and small twigs arranged to catch easily. You blow gently, providing oxygen, and flames burst to life. You've created fire. You've demonstrated mastery over the element that transformed human existence. Their shelter construction shows similar technological sophistication. They understood structural engineering principles without being able to name them. They knew how to select poles of the right diameter and strength. They knew which woods flexed without breaking, which were rigid enough to support weight. They understood how to arrange supports to create stable structures, how to layer materials to shed water, how to position entrances to minimize wind while maximizing light. Watch as a group constructs shelter together. Roles emerge naturally based on skill and strength. Some dig post holes, understanding proper depth for stability. Others gather materials, selecting carefully based on specific needs. Someone oversees the design, holding the mental blueprint, coordinating efforts. This is project management, quality control, and team coordination, all happening without formal organization or written plans. Their weapon creation represented the cutting edge of their technology. Wooden spears, fire-hardened to increase durability, balanced for throwing or thrusting. Stone-tipped projectiles with hafting sophisticated enough to survive the impact of hunting. Each weapon represented hours of skilled labor, and losing one meant significant time investment to create a replacement. They learned to value their tools, to maintain them, to repair, rather than replace when possible. Modern humans often struggle to assemble furniture from detailed instructions. We become frustrated when technology doesn't work intuitively, when we can't immediately master new tools. Yet, Homo erectus created everything they used from raw materials, using only observation and experimentation and accumulated knowledge. No instructions, no tutorials, no online help forums, just human intelligence applied patiently to material problems. Think about the creativity this required. At some point, someone looked at a rock and imagined it could become a cutting tool. Someone observed natural fires and imagined controlling them. Someone conceived of creating artificial shelters rather than relying on caves or natural formations. These weren't inevitable discoveries. They were creative leaps, imaginative innovations that transformed human capabilities. As you rest here tonight, surrounded by tools you didn't create and probably couldn't recreate if required, feel appreciation for technological civilization. Feel gratitude for the accumulated knowledge that makes your life comfortable and convenient. But also feel connection to the ancient toolmakers whose fundamental creative intelligence you inherit. When you solve problems, when you create things, when you imagine improvements to your environment, that's them. That's their gift to you, passed through countless generations. The ancient toolmaker by the fire has finished their hand axe. They test the edge, running a thumb carefully along the blade, feeling its sharpness. They balance it in their hand, checking the weight distribution. A small smile appears. This is good work, a tool that will serve well for months or perhaps years. They set it aside, carefully, adding it to the group's collection of equipment, each piece representing hours of skilled labor and the accumulated technical knowledge of millions of years of human innovation. Breathe slowly. Feel capability in your hands. The ancient creators made every tool you use possible. The last words you spoke today are already fading from memory, casual exchanges so automatic you barely thought about them. Language flows through your life effortlessly, a tool so fundamental that you rarely pause to appreciate its existence. You think in words, dream in sentences, organize your entire reality through linguistic structures that seem as natural as breathing. But there was a time, stretching back hundreds of thousands of years, when language itself was being invented, when Homo erectus was developing the communication systems that would eventually become speech. Imagine a world where language doesn't fully exist yet. You have sounds, certainly, grunts and calls and vocal expressions of emotion. But you don't have words for complex ideas, don't have grammar to structure thoughts, don't have the ability to describe something that isn't immediately present. You live in a perpetual now, unable to discuss the past in detail or plan the future with precision. This was the communication landscape Homo erectus was born into, and they transformed it. Picture a hunting group preparing to pursue game. In a world without complex language, coordination would be nearly impossible. But watch as they communicate their plan. Gestures combined with vocalizations, pointing toward distant prey, indicating directions of approach, assigning roles through physical demonstration, and simple sound patterns. It's not modern language, but it's far beyond what any other species can achieve. It's proto-language, the bridge between animal communication and human speech. Feel yourself part of that hunting group, understanding the plan not through spoken sentences, but through a rich combination of gesture, expression, vocalization, and shared experience. You know what's expected of you because you've hunted together before, because the communication taps into shared memories and practiced patterns. The sounds you make aren't arbitrary, they carry meaning, specific intentions, coordinated actions. Their vocal capabilities were developing rapidly during this period. The physical structures needed for complex speech, throat shape, tongue flexibility, breath control, were evolving. Archaeological evidence suggests Homo erectus had hyoid bones positioned similarly to modern humans, indicating speech capability was present, though perhaps not as refined. They could make a wide range of sounds, could modulate pitch and rhythm, could combine vocalizations in increasingly complex patterns. But language is more than just sound production. It's cognitive, requiring the ability to link arbitrary sounds with specific meanings, to understand that this particular sound cluster means water, while that one means danger. Watch as a parent teaches a child these connections. The parent points to water, makes a specific sound repeatedly, waits for the child to imitate. Eventually, through countless repetitions, the child internalizes the connection. This sound means this thing. The foundation of language is being built, neuron by neuron, generation by generation. Think about what language enabled. Before language, knowledge transmission was limited to what could be demonstrated physically. With language, even simple proto-language, knowledge could be described, discussed, refined. An elder could explain not just how to make a tool, but why certain techniques worked better. A hunter could describe prey behavior observed days ago.
A scout could report water sources discovered hours away.
Language exponentially increased the group's collective intelligence. Their storytelling was emerging during this period, though likely much simpler than what would come later. Stories served crucial functions, processing difficult experiences, transmitting survival knowledge, creating group cohesion. Picture the evening fire circle, voices rising and falling in narrative patterns. The story might be simple, perhaps recounting the day's successful hunt, but it serves to reinforce group identity, to celebrate success, to teach hunting techniques to younger listeners. Modern humans are so saturated with language that we sometimes forget its power. We scroll past thousands of words daily, barely registering them. We speak without considering the miracle that our mouths are producing complex coordinated sounds that other minds interpret as meaning. But Homo erectus was discovering this miracle, creating it from nothing, building the foundation for all human culture and civilization. Feel the silence of pre-language existence. Then feel the breakthrough as meaning begins to flow through sound. Imagine the cognitive leap required to understand that mouth noises could represent things, ideas, actions. Imagine the social transformation as groups gained the ability to coordinate with unprecedented precision, to share knowledge with unprecedented clarity, to connect emotionally through shared narrative. Their emotional communication was becoming more sophisticated alongside practical communication. They could express not just immediate feelings, fear, anger, joy, but the more complex emotional states. They could communicate empathy, understanding, support. They could maintain relationships through vocal connection even when separated. The mother calling to her child, the sound carrying reassurance and protection across distance. The group calling to each other during travel, maintaining contact, confirming presence. Watch as they develop naming, one of language's most profound innovations. This person has a specific sound associated with them, a proto-name. When that sound is made, everyone knows who's being referenced. Identity becomes portable, discussable, persistent beyond immediate presence. The dead can be remembered and discussed because they had names that persist beyond their physical existence. Modern linguists studying language development can only theorize about these early stages. No recordings exist, no written evidence, but comparative studies of modern languages, analysis of human cognitive development, and observation of how children acquire language all suggest the process Homo erectus went through. They were pioneers exploring cognitive territory no species had ever entered, developing capabilities that would define what it means to be human as you rest here tonight. Your mind processing language automatically, even in dreams. Feel gratitude for this inheritance.
Every word you know, every sentence you construct, every story you tell, it all rests on the foundation these ancient communicators built.
They gave you not just survival tools, but the tools to think complexly, to share deeply, to connect meaningfully. The group around the fire is settling into quiet now. The day's stories have been told, voices dropping to murmurs, then to contented silence. But even in silence, they're connected by the emerging language they share, by the sounds that increasingly bind them together as not just a survival group, but a communication community. Tomorrow they'll use these developing linguistic tools to coordinate, to teach, to share. Tonight, they rest in the satisfaction of connection, of meaning shared through sound. Breathe slowly. Feel words dissolving into peaceful silence. The ancient language pioneers gave you voice, and tonight you give yourself permission to rest beyond words. Warmth surrounds you right now, perhaps from central heating or a comfortable blanket, temperature controlled with such ease that you barely think about it. But that warmth, that ability to create and control heat on demand, represents one of humanity's most profound achievements. And it began with Homo erectus learning to master the most dangerous, powerful element in their environment, fire. Picture fire from the perspective of an animal. It's terrifying, destructive, something to flee from instinctively. Every other species on Earth maintains this relationship with fire, pure fear and avoidance. But Homo erectus looked at fire and saw possibility. They saw light in darkness. They saw warmth in cold.
They saw protection from predators.
They saw a way to transform food and tools and their entire relationship with the environment. And somehow, despite having every reason to fear it, they learned to control it. The moment when a Homo erectus individual first successfully created fire from nothing must have felt like magic.
Imagine it. You've been rubbing two sticks together for what feels like hours, your hands blistered and aching, your arms burning with fatigue.
You've seen others do this, know it's possible, but your own attempts have failed repeatedly.
Then suddenly smoke appears.
Real smoke, thickening, and within it, a tiny glowing ember.
Your heart races.
Carefully, so carefully, you transfer the ember to prepared tinder, blow gently to feed it oxygen, and flames burst into life. You've created fire. You've accomplished something no other species can do. Feel yourself there, your hands still trembling from effort, your face lit by flames you created from nothing but wood and determination and learned technique. This isn't just survival skill, it's transformation of your relationship with reality. You're no longer dependent on finding natural fire from lightning strikes or volcanic activity. You can create warmth and light on demand. You've become something more than an animal bound by environmental circumstances, but creating fire was only the beginning. Maintaining it required even deeper knowledge. Watch as an experienced firekeeper manages their group's flames. They understand that different woods burn differently. Pine creates quick hot flames, but burns fast. Oak burns slower and more steadily. Certain barks create embers that last through the night. They know how to arrange fuel for maximum efficiency, creating structures that allow airflow while maintaining concentrated heat. The firekeeper understands moisture content, knowing that wet wood smokes but doesn't burn well, that wood needs to be dried before use. They understand wind direction, positioning the fire to avoid having smoke blow into sleeping areas while ensuring flames get enough oxygen. They understand heat distribution, arranging people around the fire to maximize warmth while preventing accidents. This knowledge, accumulated through generations, represents sophisticated understanding of combustion chemistry and thermodynamics, though they couldn't have articulated it in those terms. Think about the psychological transformation fire enabled. Before fire control, darkness meant vulnerability and fear. Predators hunted in darkness with advantages humans couldn't match: superior night vision, stealth, hunting instincts refined over millions of years. But fire created a protective circle of light. Predators, naturally afraid of flames, stayed beyond the firelit perimeter. Suddenly humans could be active and safe after sunset, extending their productive day, creating time for tool-making and social bonding and rest without constant fear. Picture the nighttime fire circle as the center of social life. Days were spent hunting and gathering, scattered across the landscape, but evenings brought the group together around the flames. This became the space where knowledge was transmitted, where stories were told, where children learned from elders, where social bonds were maintained and strengthened. Fire didn't just provide physical comfort, it created the social foundation of human culture. Their cooking revolution, enabled by fire, transformed human evolution itself. Raw meat requires tremendous digestive energy to process and yields fewer calories, but cooked meat is easier to digest and provides more nutrition. Watch as they develop cooking techniques, learning that meat held over flames cooks differently than meat buried in embers, that some foods need quick high heat while others benefit from slow cooking, that certain plants become safer and more nutritious when cooked. Feel the satisfaction of eating cooked food after a lifetime of raw consumption. The meat is tender, flavorful, easier to chew. Your stomach doesn't have to work as hard to extract nutrients. You're getting more energy from the same amount of food. Over generations, this increased nutrition enables brain growth, allowing the development of the larger, more complex brains that eventually lead to modern humans. Fire made human intelligence possible, but fire was dangerous too, and managing that danger required constant attention. An untended fire could spread, destroying shelters or causing injuries. Sparks could ignite dry grass, creating uncontrollable wildfires. Burns were common injuries, teaching painful lessons about respect for flames. They learned to maintain careful boundaries, to teach children about fire's dual nature, to never become complacent about its power. Watch as they develop fire transportation techniques, an innovation that seems simple but required sophisticated understanding. Carrying live embers in containers made from hollowed wood or wrapped in damp leaves, maintaining just enough oxygen to keep them alive but not enough to create flame. This enabled the group to move while maintaining fire access, to start new fires quickly at each camp, to never lose the precious flames they'd worked so hard to create. Modern humans have largely lost this intimate relationship with fire. We flick switches and flames appear on stoves. We press buttons and heating systems activate. Fire has become domesticated, sanitized, controlled through technology rather than skill. Many people rarely encounter open flames, and when they do, they're often uncomfortable or uncertain. But your genetic memory remembers. Deep in your DNA is the knowledge that fire is humanity's greatest tool and oldest friend. As you rest in warmth tonight, whether from heating systems or blankets, remember that every bit of that comfort traces back to Homo Erectus mastering fire. They learned to create it, control it, use it to transform their lives and eventually transform the entire planet. Every cooked meal you eat, every warm home you enter, every technological advance that required metallurgy or chemistry, it all begins with them looking at fire and seeing possibility instead of just danger. The firekeeper adds another log to the flames, ensuring the group will stay warm through the night. The fire crackles contentedly, its light pushing back darkness, its warmth creating a bubble of comfort against the surrounding cold. Tomorrow they'll need to gather more fuel to maintain this constant need, but tonight the fire burns steadily, eternal and essential, the heart of human existence. Breathe in warmth.
Exhale gratitude.
The ancient fire masters gave you the power to transform your world. Your last meal is digesting peacefully right now, nutrients being extracted and distributed throughout your body, energy being stored or used, the complex chemistry of nourishment proceeding automatically. You probably didn't think much about eating, prepared food, consumed quickly, barely pausing to appreciate the transformation that cooking represents. But that meal, that simple act of eating prepared food, connects you to one of the most important innovations in human history. Imagine eating raw meat exclusively every day of your life. Your jaws ache from constant chewing, working to break down tough muscle fibers. Your stomach struggles with digestion, using enormous energy to process food that yields relatively few calories. You spend hours each day just eating, grinding away at food that doesn't want to be consumed. This was reality for early hominids before cooking, and it limited everything: energy available for brain function, time available for other activities, nutrition available for growth and health. Then watch as a piece of meat accidentally falls into fire. In a world without cooking, this seems like waste, food destroyed by flames. But someone hungry enough or curious enough or desperate enough tries eating it anyway, and something remarkable happens. The meat is different, softer, easier to chew, with flavors that raw meat never had. They eat more and notice something else. Their stomach handles it better. They feel more satisfied. Without understanding the biochemistry, they've discovered that heat transforms food fundamentally. Feel that first bite of deliberately cooked meat, the breakthrough meal that would change human evolution. The flesh tears easily between your teeth, requiring a fraction of the chewing that raw meat demanded. The flavors are intense, complex, nothing like the bland taste of raw flesh. You swallow and your stomach processes it efficiently, extracting nutrients that were previously locked away in raw tissue. You're getting more calories from less food with less effort. You've discovered a kind of external pre-digestion, using fire to do work your gut previously had to do alone. But the revolution went far beyond just meat. Watch as they experiment with plants, discovering that cooking transforms them too.
Roots that were toxic when raw become safe after roasting in embers.
Tough leaves become tender. Seeds become more digestible. Certain foods that cause stomach problems raw become nutritious when cooked. They're expanding their diet dramatically, learning to process foods that were previously inaccessible. Their experimentation was systematic over time, accumulated through countless trials. Someone tries cooking this new plant. Maybe it's better, maybe it makes them sick. That information gets remembered and shared. Someone discovers that meat cooked slowly near coals tastes different from meat held over flames. That technique gets refined and passed down. Someone learns that certain woods add flavor to food. That knowledge becomes part of cooking tradition. Think about the cognitive development this enabled. Your brain uses 20% of your body's energy despite being only 2% of your body weight. Brains are metabolically expensive, and larger brains require more calories. Raw food diets simply couldn't provide enough nutrition to support significant brain expansion. But cooked food, yielding more calories with less digestive energy expenditure, created a nutritional surplus. That surplus went to brain development. Cooking didn't just feed our ancestors, it made modern human intelligence possible. Picture the social transformation cooking created. Food preparation became a shared activity, a time for teaching and bonding. Elders passed cooking techniques to younger generations. Experimental results were discussed and debated. Recipes, though nothing like modern written formulas, began to develop. Shared knowledge about which combinations worked well, which methods produced best results. Cooking became culture, not just nutrition. Their food preservation techniques developed alongside cooking. They discovered that meat dried over smoke lasted longer without spoiling. They learned that certain cooking methods made food safe to store for days rather than hours. They understood, though not in modern microbiological terms, that heat killed something in food that caused sickness. Fire wasn't just changing food's texture and flavor, it was making food safer, reducing infections from parasites and bacteria. Watch as they develop primitive smoking techniques, hanging strips of meat near fire using smoke to preserve and flavor simultaneously. This innovation meant successful hunts could feed the group for extended periods. Feast and famine cycles became less extreme. Food security increased. Survival odds improved dramatically, all because they learned to control heat and apply it systematically to food. Modern humans are so far removed from cooking's revolutionary impact that we often view it as mere convenience. We microwave prepared meals, order takeout, eat without considering the transformation cooking represents. But nutritionists and anthropologists understand that cooking is fundamental to human evolution. We're not just a species that cooks, we're a species that couldn't exist without cooking. Our digestive systems have actually evolved to expect cooked food. Try eating exclusively raw food for a month, and you'll struggle to maintain energy and health. Your body has been shaped by your ancestors' discovery of cooking. Feel gratitude for the meal you ate today, but also for the hundreds of thousands of years of cooking knowledge that made it possible. Every technique, every flavor combination, every cooking method, it all builds on the foundation Homo erectus created when they first deliberately applied fire to food. They didn't just feed themselves, they fed the future, creating the nutritional abundance that allowed human brains to grow and human civilization to emerge. Their cooking sites, traced through archaeology, show increasingly sophisticated food preparation over time. Early sites show simple roasting of meat in fires. Later sites show more complex arrangements, separate areas for different cooking methods, storage of cooking tools, evidence of varied food preparation techniques. They were developing cuisine, the art and science of cooking, learning that food could be not just nutritious but enjoyable, that preparation methods mattered, that meals could be optimized for taste and nutrition simultaneously. As you rest tonight, your body extracting the last nutrients from your cooked meal, remember that this simple biological process connects you to the most important culinary revolution in history. Your ability to digest efficiently, to extract maximum nutrition, to fuel your complex brain, it all depends on food being cooked. The ancient cooking revolutionaries saw potential in fire's transformation of food, and they pursued that potential until it became foundational to human existence. The group around the fire has finished their evening meal. Satisfied sounds, contented silence, the deep pleasure of full stomachs after successful hunting and skilled preparation. Tomorrow they'll need to find food again, to continue the endless cycle of hunting and gathering and cooking. But tonight, they rest in the satisfaction of nourishment, of fire-transformed food, of the cooking revolution that feeds body and builds brain. They sleep peacefully, their bodies processing the nutrients that will fuel tomorrow's survival. Breathe deeply, feel nourished completely. The ancient cooks fed the future, and that future is you. The roof above you right now, the walls surrounding you, the floor beneath you, these structural elements are so familiar that you probably never pause to appreciate them. Shelter is assumed, expected, a basic requirement of modern life that rarely fails. But there was a time when shelter didn't exist, when humans slept exposed to elements and dangers, when every night was spent in vulnerability. Then Homo erectus began building, creating artificial protection where nature provided none, transforming from species that found shelter to species that made it. Imagine sleeping without walls, without a roof, with nothing between you and the night except whatever natural features you could find. A cave, if lucky, an overhanging rock, dense vegetation that provided minimal protection. You're exposed to rain that soaks you to the bone, wind that steals your body heat, temperature swings from day to night that leave you shivering. Predators can approach from any direction, see you easily, assess your vulnerability. This exposure isn't occasional inconvenience, it's your permanent reality every single night. Then watch as someone has an idea, perhaps inspired by observing how animals create nests or burrows.
What if we could create our own protection?
What if we could build something that provides the benefits of a cave without needing to find one? The first shelters were probably simple. Branches leaned together, perhaps covered with leaves or hides. But even this basic construction represents a profound cognitive leap. Instead of accepting environmental conditions, they're modifying the environment to suit their needs. Feel yourself helping construct shelter, understanding the principles through hands-on experience. You need straight branches strong enough to support weight. You learn which trees provide these, how to select pieces of appropriate diameter and length. You need to secure these branches at angles that create stability. You discover through trial and error that certain arrangements resist wind, while others collapse. You need roofing material that sheds water. You experiment with leaves, bark, animal hides, learning which materials last longest and protect best. Their understanding of structural engineering developed through practical experience across generations. A shelter that collapsed in wind taught lessons about bracing and angles. A shelter that leaked taught lessons about roofing materials and overlap. A shelter that predators easily breached taught lessons about defensive positioning and solid barriers. Each failure refined their knowledge, each success confirmed effective techniques. Over thousands of years, shelter design became increasingly sophisticated. Picture the decision-making process when choosing a shelter site. They're looking for multiple factors simultaneously: proximity to water but not so close that flooding is a risk, elevated positions that provide visibility but not so exposed that wind becomes problematic, natural windbreaks like rock formations or dense trees, areas where materials for construction are readily available. This isn't random selection, it's strategic planning based on accumulated environmental knowledge. Watch as they construct a more advanced shelter, representing generations of design refinement. The frame uses carefully selected poles, the thickest providing primary support, thinner pieces creating roof structure. These poles are positioned in holes dug specifically for them, providing stability that simply staking them into ground couldn't achieve. Cross-bracing adds strength learned from observing which structures survived storms. The entire design shows understanding of load distribution, wind resistance, and water management. Their roofing techniques were particularly clever. Layers of materials arranged to shed water, each layer overlapping the one below so rain runs off rather than penetrating. Large leaves positioned carefully, bark strips aligned properly, animal hides stretched and secured to maximize water resistance. They understood that trapped moisture led to rot and discomfort, so they created airflow while maintaining protection. This balance between ventilation and shelter required sophisticated understanding of air movement and moisture dynamics. Think about the psychological impact of shelter. Instead of sleeping exposed and vulnerable, you're inside something you created, walls providing security, roof blocking rain, and blocking visual access from potential threats. The shelter becomes more than physical protection, it's psychological comfort. A defined space that's yours, a home base that increases sense of control and safety. Humans are literally creating the concept of home. Modern architecture has become so complex that it requires years of training and sophisticated tools. We have building codes, engineered materials, power tools, precise plans. Yet the fundamental principles Homo erectus discovered remain the same: structural support, weather protection, strategic positioning, using available materials efficiently. Every building you enter, from simple house to massive skyscraper, builds on foundation principles these ancient architects developed. Their shelters showed cultural variation across different environments, proving they adapted designs to local conditions rather than using one universal approach. Groups living in forested areas built differently from groups in grasslands. Those experiencing heavy rainfall designed differently from those in arid regions. This flexibility, this ability to assess environmental challenges and create appropriate solutions, demonstrates sophisticated problem-solving abilities. Watch as the group maintains their shelter, not just building but actively caring for the structure. Damaged sections are repaired promptly, preventing small problems from becoming major failures. Materials are replaced as they wear out. The structure is reinforced before storm seasons. They've learned that maintaining shelter is ongoing work, that the initial construction is just the beginning of a continuous relationship with the building. Feel the satisfaction of sleeping inside shelter you helped create. Rain falls outside, but you remain dry. Wind howls, but you stay warm. Predators prowl, but they can't see you, can't easily access you. The shelter has transformed your relationship with the environment from passive acceptance to active modification. You're no longer entirely at nature's mercy. You've created a buffer, a controlled space, a place where human needs take priority over environmental conditions. As you rest tonight in your perfectly controlled shelter, with its solid walls and reliable roof and regulated temperature, remember that this comfort builds on hundreds of thousands of years of shelter innovation. The ancient architects who first imagined creating protection rather than just finding it, who developed construction techniques through trial and error, who refined designs across countless generations. They made your comfortable home possible. The group around the fire is settling into their shelter for the night. Children nestle into prepared sleeping areas. Adults arrange themselves with practiced efficiency, everyone knowing their position, the shelter, feeling familiar and secure. Outside, the night holds its usual dangers and discomforts. Inside, protected by walls they built and roof they designed, the group rests peacefully. Tomorrow may bring challenges, but tonight they sleep secure in the knowledge that humans can create safety where none existed before. Breathe deeply.
Feel sheltered completely.
The ancient builders constructed your comfort across time. Perhaps there's a glass of water within reach right now, or a bathroom sink just steps away, or bottled water in a refrigerator. Access to water is so reliable in modern life that genuine thirst is rare. Water scarcity unimaginable to most people in developed regions. But this abundance is extraordinarily recent in human history. For hundreds of thousands of years, water was uncertain, challenging, often the difference between survival and death. And Homo erectus became masters at finding it where others saw only dry earth. Imagine standing in the African savanna during the dry season. The sun merciless overhead, surrounded by cracked earth and dying vegetation. You're thirsty, genuinely thirsty, not the mild discomfort of forgetting your water bottle, but the desperate need that comes from days of inadequate hydration. Your group's survival depends on finding water, but in every direction you see only drought. Modern humans in this situation would likely panic or despair. But watch as the Homo erectus water finder begins reading the landscape with expert eyes. They're not looking for obvious water sources, those dried up weeks ago. They're looking for signs, subtle indicators that most eyes would miss. Notice how they observe bird flight patterns, watching not just where birds fly, but how they fly. Morning flights are often purposeful, direct, leading toward water sources where birds drink after the cool night. Evening flights follow similar patterns. The water finder tracks these flight paths, noting where multiple bird routes converge, where winged creatures are confidently heading. Feel yourself learning to read these signs, your perception expanding to notice what you previously overlooked. That line of trees in the distance, still retaining green leaves while everything around them has turned brown. Those trees are accessing underground water. Their deep roots reaching moisture hidden beneath the surface. Where those trees grow, water can be found if you dig deep enough, if you're patient enough, if you understand the relationship between vegetation and hidden hydration. Watch as they approach a dry riverbed, seemingly just another failed water source, but the water finder knows better. They're reading the riverbed's geography, looking for specific features, areas where the bed curves creating natural collection points. Places where rocks create underground barriers that trap water, sections where the Earth's surface has particular coloration, indicating moisture retention below. They select a spot that looks random to untrained eyes but represents accumulated knowledge about subsurface water behavior. The group begins digging, stone tools scraping away layers of dry earth. 1 foot down, the earth is still dust. 2 feet down, still dry. 3 feet down, the soil color changes subtly, becoming slightly darker. This is promising but not yet success. They continue 4 feet down and suddenly the soil is noticeably damp. They've found it. Water, not flowing on the surface, but trapped beneath, waiting for those patient and knowledgeable enough to retrieve it. Think about the patience this requires. Modern humans become frustrated when water from taps takes seconds to run hot. We feel inconvenienced by minor delays in accessing immediate hydration. But Homo erectus would dig for hours to access water, would travel for days toward predicted sources, would maintain hope and effort through countless disappointments. Their water-finding psychology combined realistic assessment with unwavering determination. Their knowledge of water-indicating plants was encyclopedic, accumulated across generations. Certain succulent species stored water in their roots or stems. Knowing which ones and how to harvest that water safely required intimate botanical knowledge. Some plants were poisonous, but others were safe. Some yielded only small amounts of water, but others were more generous. Some were obvious, while others were subtle. This knowledge was precious, literally life-saving, carefully taught to each generation. Picture an elder teaching a young person water-finding skills, pointing out signs that aren't obvious. The elder explains that certain animal tracks, when fresh and heading in consistent directions, often lead to water. They describe how morning dew collects more heavily in certain areas, how this moisture can be harvested using absorbent materials. They share that some rocks, when broken, sometimes reveal water trapped in tiny cavities. The teaching is patient, detailed, understanding that water-finding knowledge might someday mean the difference between the young person's survival or death. Their water conservation techniques were equally important. When water was found, they didn't simply drink until satisfied and move on. They filled containers, ostrich eggs with small holes created for this purpose, animal bladders carefully prepared and sealed, hollowed wooden vessels. They understood that carrying water, despite the extra weight, provided security between water sources. They rationed carefully when necessary, drinking just enough to maintain function while preserving supplies. Watch as they mark water sources, creating subtle signs that their group or other groups might recognize if returning to this area. Small rock arrangements, carved marks on distinctive trees, patterns that mean water below this point to those trained to read them. They're creating a kind of map written into the landscape itself, a shared knowledge system that benefits not just their immediate group, but the wider human community. Modern water infrastructure, pipes, reservoir, treatment plants, distribution systems, has made water finding obsolete in developed regions. We've removed the challenge so completely that water scarcity seems like ancient history or distant geography. But climate change is revealing how fragile this abundance is. Droughts reveal that water mastery requires more than just infrastructure. It requires the kind of environmental literacy that Homo erectus possessed, the ability to read landscapes and find water where it's hidden. As you rest tonight, your body properly hydrated, your next drink assured, feel gratitude for the water systems that serve you, but also feel connection to the ancient water finders whose skills sustained humanity through hundreds of thousands of years of uncertainty. Their knowledge, their patience, their ability to find water against all odds, it lives in you genetically and culturally. When you notice patterns in nature, when you read environmental signs, when you appreciate water's preciousness, that's them speaking through time. The water finder has led the group to success today. The digging yielded water, not abundant but sufficient. Containers have been filled. Everyone has drunk their fill. Tomorrow they'll need to find water again to continue the endless search, but tonight they rest with the satisfaction of need met, of knowledge proven valuable once again. As they settle around the fire, thirst quenched, They carry forward the water-finding wisdom that sustains human life in impossible places. Breathe moisture deep into your lungs. Feel hydrated gratitude. The ancient water-finders found life where others saw only death. You probably interacted with other people today, perhaps many others. Conversations, messages, brief exchanges, deeper connections. These social interactions might have felt routine, but they're part of something profound. The deep human need for community, for belonging, for being part of something larger than individual existence. This need isn't modern or cultural. It's ancient, fundamental, built into human nature through hundreds of thousands of years when community wasn't just emotionally satisfying, but essential for survival. Imagine trying to survive alone in the Homo Erectus world. No one to watch for predators while you sleep. No one to help when you're injured or ill. No one to share food during your unsuccessful hunting days. No one to teach you skills or share accumulated knowledge. Solitary existence in that environment would mean death within days or weeks. Humans weren't the fastest species, weren't the strongest, weren't naturally equipped with the best weapons. But humans were the most cooperative, and that cooperation made them survive when individually they would have perished. Watch a Homo erectus group functioning together, and you're observing social complexity that exceeds most animal societies. There's subtle hierarchy, but it's fluid, based on competence and context rather than pure dominance. The best hunter leads during hunts. The most knowledgeable plant gatherer directs foraging. The elder with deepest wisdom guides group decisions. Leadership shifts based on need, and everyone understands their role without requiring formal structure or rules. Feel yourself part of this community, experiencing the profound security of belonging. You're not alone against the world's dangers. When you're weak, others are strong. When you're sick, others care for you. When you're fearful, others provide courage. The group's collective capability far exceeds any individual's, and you contribute to that collective while benefiting from it. This isn't abstract social philosophy, it's immediate, practical survival advantage. Their child-rearing was fundamentally communal. A child wasn't just their parents' responsibility, but the entire group's. Watch as a mother hunts, confident leaving her infant with others, knowing the child will be protected and cared for as attentively as if she remained present. Watch as elders teach skills to all children, not just their biological descendants, understanding that every child's competence increases the group's future survival odds. This shared parenting created resilience. Orphan children had multiple caregivers, and no child's survival depended solely on their parents remaining alive. Think about the psychological impact of this communal existence. Modern humans often struggle with loneliness, isolation, feeling disconnected despite being surrounded by people. We create artificial community through social media and organizations, trying to recreate something that once came naturally. But Homo erectus lived in constant, intimate contact with their group. They knew every person deeply, understood everyone's strengths and weaknesses, shared experiences so completely that individual and group identity partially merged. Their food sharing went beyond simple exchange. When someone made a successful kill or found abundant plant food, they shared freely, understanding that tomorrow they might be the one who needs sharing. This wasn't formalized reciprocity. No one tracked debts or expected exact returns. It was genuine communal support, everyone contributing what they could and taking what they needed. This generosity made practical sense in an environment where individual food security was impossible, but group food security was achievable. Watch as they make group decisions, a process that looks chaotic to modern eyes but actually demonstrates sophisticated social intelligence. There's discussion with different viewpoints expressed. There's disagreement sometimes, but it rarely becomes destructive conflict. Eventually, consensus emerges not through voting or formal processes, but through social dynamics that value both individual insight and group cohesion. Those with relevant expertise have more influence on decisions in their domains, but everyone's voice matters. Picture the emotional support systems within the group. Someone experiences loss, a child dies, a hunting accident kills a partner, disease takes a parent. The grief is real and profound, but it's not solitary. The entire group mourns together, sharing the burden, preventing the isolated despair that can destroy individuals. They've learned through necessity that emotional wounds can be as dangerous as physical ones, and they treat both with communal care. Their conflict resolution, while not perfect, was remarkably effective given the pressures they lived under. Disagreements happened over resource distribution, mate selection, group direction, but destructive conflict was too dangerous to tolerate. Groups that tore themselves apart through internal fighting didn't survive, so they developed social mechanisms for managing tension, mediation by respected elders, cooling off periods, rituals that reset relationships, an understanding that group survival required putting cooperation above individual pride. Modern humans often romanticize independence, celebrating individual achievement and self-sufficiency. We sometimes view depending on others as weakness, but Homo erectus understood that true strength came from interdependence, from acknowledging that humans are fundamentally social creatures who thrive in community and struggle in isolation. Their communal living wasn't a limitation, it was their greatest survival advantage. Think about trust at the level they experienced it. You sleep surrounded by your group, completely vulnerable, trusting that those keeping watch will truly watch, that those protecting will truly protect. You share food even when you're hungry, trusting that when you're desperate, others will share with you. You teach valuable skills to others, trusting that knowledge will benefit the group even if it reduces your individual advantage. This depth of trust, built and maintained daily, created social bonds stronger than any modern contracts or agreements. Their elderly members were treasured rather than burdensome, recognized as repositories of crucial knowledge. The elder who remembered the drought 20 years ago and how the group survived it. The elder who knew which plants were edible in regions the group hadn't visited for years. The elder who understood seasonal patterns spanning decades. This knowledge couldn't be written down or stored externally. It lived in memory, and losing an elder meant losing irreplaceable survival information. Watch as the group cares for someone who can no longer contribute physically, perhaps injured or aged beyond productive work. Modern economic thinking might see this as wasted resources, but Homo erectus understood deeper value. This person taught others, provided wisdom, maintained group memory, offered emotional support. Their worth wasn't measured purely in physical contribution. The group cared for them not from abstract morality, but from practical understanding that community strength came from caring for all members. As you rest tonight, perhaps feeling lonely or isolated despite modern connectivity, remember that deep within you is a need for genuine community, for the kind of intimate connection Homo erectus lived daily. That need hasn't disappeared with civilization. If anything, modern life often frustrates it, creating superficial connections while genuine community becomes harder to find. But the hunger for belonging remains, passed down through countless generations who survived specifically because they belonged to each other. The group around the fire is settling into familiar closeness now. Bodies arranged naturally, maintaining individual space while remaining connected. Soft conversations winding down into comfortable silence. Children sleeping peacefully surrounded by protective adults. Elders positioned where they can offer wisdom if needed, but also rest deeply. This is community at its most fundamental. People choosing to face life together, understanding that shared challenges become bearable while shared joys become magnified. Breathe in connection, breathe out isolation. The ancient community builders taught humanity that survival is a team sport, that we're stronger together than apart, that belonging isn't luxury but necessity. Their communal wisdom lives in every friendship you maintain, every family bond you honor, every group you join. You're built for community, designed for connection, shaped by ancestors who survived specifically because they never faced the world alone. Rest in the knowledge that you belong to an ancient family spanning hundreds of thousands of years. You're never truly alone. The entire human story surrounds you, supports you, connects you to something far larger than individual existence. In modern society, knowledge is stored externally. Books, computers, cloud servers, vast digital libraries containing information far beyond what any individual could memorize. We've outsourced memory to technology so completely that many people struggle to remember phone numbers or directions without digital assistance. But there was a time, spanning hundreds of thousands of years, when all knowledge existed only in human memory. And the people who held the most memory, who carried decades of accumulated experience, were precious beyond measure. These were the elders, the living libraries, the wisdom keepers, whose survival often meant the difference between a group's success and extinction. Imagine a world where forgetting means death, not metaphorically, literally, where critical survival information exists nowhere except in the minds of those who've learned it through direct experience, where the knowledge of which plants are poisonous and which are nutritious, which water sources remain reliable through drought and which dry up, which predator behaviors signal attack and which signal retreat. All this crucial information is carried exclusively in human memory, passed person to person, generation to generation. Watch an elder Homo erectus, perhaps in their late 40s or early 50s, an age that represents remarkable survival in their dangerous world. Their body shows the wear of decades of hard living, scars from hunting accidents and predator encounters, joints stiffened from injuries that healed but never fully recovered, teeth worn from years of chewing tough food. But their eyes hold something invaluable, the memory of seasons spanning decades, experiences numbering in the tens of thousands, pattern recognition refined through countless observations. Feel yourself sitting with this elder as evening settles, the fire crackling between you, their voice sharing knowledge that might someday save your life. They're describing a drought they survived 30 years ago, before you were born, before most of the current group existed. They remember how the usual water sources failed, remember the alternative source that barely anyone knew about, remember the plants that sustained the group when hunting failed. This memory, specific and detailed, is knowledge you couldn't gain any other way. It can't be looked up or researched. It exists only in this elder's mind. Their understanding of long-term patterns was extraordinary. They'd observed enough seasonal cycles to recognize multi-year patterns that younger members couldn't perceive. They knew that certain events predicted changes years in the future. They understood that animal populations fluctuated over extended timescales. They recognized that plant abundance followed complex patterns spanning decades. This deep pattern recognition, impossible to develop without extensive experience, made elders essential for long-term survival planning. Think about the respect this commanded. In modern society, elderly people are often marginalized, seen as out of touch or irrelevant to contemporary challenges. We value youth and innovation, sometimes dismissing wisdom accumulated through experience. But Homo erectus couldn't afford that luxury. Their elders held knowledge that had proven valuable through decades of application. Young hunters might be stronger and faster, but elders knew which hunting strategies actually worked, which had been tried and failed, which conditions favored which approaches. Picture a crisis moment, perhaps unusual weather patterns or unexpected predator behavior or mysterious illness affecting the group. The younger members are uncertain, lacking experience with this particular challenge, but the elder speaks up, remembering a similar situation from years past, describing how it was handled then, what worked and what didn't. This institutional memory, carried in one person's mind, guides the group's response and potentially saves lives. Their teaching methods were sophisticated, adapted to how humans learn and remember. They didn't just state facts, they told stories, embedded information in narrative that made it memorable and emotionally resonant. They used repetition, understanding that important knowledge needed reinforcement. They demonstrated whenever possible, knowing that physical experience created stronger memories than abstract instruction. They tested learners, ensuring knowledge was truly internalized rather than superficially heard. Watch as an elder teaches plant identification to younger group members. They don't just point and name, they create associations that aid memory. This leaf shape resembles an animal track. This plant grows near these specific other plants. This one smells distinctive when crushed. This one changes appearance across seasons. They're building a mental database in their students' minds, creating connections that will enable recognition even years later. Their medical knowledge was extensive, accumulated through decades of treating injuries and illnesses. They remembered which plant treatments worked for which conditions, which treatments had dangerous side effects, which healing techniques succeeded and which failed. This pharmaceutical wisdom, refined through countless applications across decades, represented sophisticated understanding of herbal medicine. Modern research is discovering that many traditional plant remedies actually work biochemically, validating knowledge that elders carried and transmitted for hundreds of thousands of years. Feel the psychological wisdom they possessed as well. They'd observed human nature across decades, understanding personality patterns, recognizing early signs of psychological distress, knowing how to counsel those struggling with grief or fear or anger. Their emotional intelligence, developed through extensive social experience, made them invaluable counselors and mediators. They could often diffuse conflicts that younger members would escalate, could offer perspective that helped people cope with losses. Modern psychology is rediscovering what elders always knew, that wisdom genuinely develops with age and experience, that certain forms of intelligence actually improve rather than decline as people age, that emotional regulation and social understanding often peak in later life. The Homo Erectus group that protected and valued their elders had access to this irreplaceable resource, while groups that didn't lost crucial survival advantages. Think about how the elders themselves processed their role. They'd survived decades of challenges that killed most others. They carried scars, physical and emotional, from experiences that would have broken lesser individuals. Yet they chose to use their survival, their accumulated knowledge, their hard-won wisdom to help their group succeed. They weren't bitter or withdrawn. They were engaged, active, teaching, guiding, offering the best of what they'd learned through a lifetime of survival. As you rest tonight, perhaps thinking about older people in your own life, remember that you carry genes from elders who survived long enough to pass wisdom forward. Every human alive today descends from elders who made it through impossible challenges and shared what they learned. The respect for accumulated experience, the understanding that age brings valuable perspective, the recognition that wisdom is earned through survival. These are inheritances from Homo erectus culture. The elder by the fire has finished sharing tonight's teaching. Tomorrow they'll share more, the endless work of passing knowledge forward, ensuring that when they eventually die, their wisdom doesn't die with them. Younger listeners will carry fragments of what they learned, and those fragments will someday save lives, solve problems, guide decisions. This is how humanity survived, by creating living chains of wisdom, each generation learning from the last, each elder lighting the way for those who follow. Breathe deeply. Honor those who came before. The ancient wisdom keepers preserved the knowledge that lets you exist. A child's life today typically involves school, play, structured activities, extensive protection from danger and difficulty. Modern parenting aims to create safe, nurturing environments where children can develop without facing serious risks. This protective approach has value, certainly, but it would have meant death in the Homo erectus world. Their children faced a different reality, one where survival skills needed to be learned early and thoroughly, where childhood was preparation for a life of constant challenge. where play itself was training for deadly, serious adult responsibilities. Imagine a Homo erectus child, perhaps 5 or 6 years old by modern reckoning,
already possessing skills that would impress most modern adults.
They can identify hundreds of plant species, knowing which are nutritious, which are poisonous, which require preparation before eating. They can read animal tracks, distinguishing between species and determining how recently the animal passed. They can start fire using friction methods, given enough time and proper materials. They understand predator behavior well enough to recognize danger signs and respond appropriately. This isn't exceptional, it's normal, expected, the baseline competence every child needs to develop. Watch as a young child accompanies adults during gathering expeditions. They're not just tagging along passively, they're actively learning, asking questions through gesture and emerging language, handling plants under careful supervision, tasting safe species, memorizing characteristics. The teaching is patient but serious. Mistakes in plant identification could mean eating something toxic. The child needs to learn not just surface characteristics but deeper patterns, how to identify plants in different seasons, how to distinguish similar species, how to test unfamiliar plants safely. Feel yourself as that child, your mind absorbing information with the intensity that only young brains achieve. You're learning not from abstract instruction, but from direct experience, from touching and smelling and sometimes tasting, from making mistakes under supervision and receiving immediate correction. Your education isn't separated from life. It is life. Every moment a learning opportunity, every experience building the knowledge base you'll need for independent survival. Their physical education began almost from birth. Infants were carried constantly, developing strong grip strength from clinging to their mothers. As soon as they could walk, children were walking long distances, building endurance and developing the efficient bipedal locomotion that characterized their species. They climbed trees for safety and fun, developing coordination and spatial awareness. They ran regularly, building speed and learning to read terrain while moving quickly. Their bodies were being trained for the physical demands of adult survival. Think about the psychological difference this created. Modern children are often protected from failure, shielded from consequences, given participation trophies that reward mere presence. But Homo erectus children experienced real failure with real consequences, not life-threatening in most cases, but genuinely uncomfortable. If they didn't help gather food, they felt hunger. If they didn't prepare properly for cold nights, they felt uncomfortable. These experiences taught resilience, self-reliance, and the importance of competence in ways that abstract lessons never could. Picture weapons training beginning in early childhood. Small spears appropriate for child hands, practice targets, patient instruction in throwing mechanics. This wasn't about encouraging violence, it was essential survival preparation. A 10-year-old might need to defend against a predator or contribute to hunting. Better they learn these skills gradually, safely, with expert instruction, than face situations unprepared. The training was serious because the need was real. Their play activities weren't separate from survival training, they were indistinguishable from it. Children played hunting games that taught stalking, coordination, and strategic thinking. They played tracking games that developed observational skills. They played shelter-building games that taught construction principles. What looked like play was actually sophisticated pedagogical technique, making learning engaging while developing crucial capabilities. Watch as children care for younger siblings and other group children. A 7-year-old might be responsible for watching a toddler, teaching them, protecting them, helping them learn. This early caregiving developed nurturing abilities and social responsibility while giving younger children multiple teachers and caregivers. It also freed adults for more dangerous or complex tasks. Knowing children were being supervised by slightly older children who took the responsibilities seriously. Modern developmental psychology suggests that children learn best through hands-on experience. That abstract instruction is less effective than practical application. The children are capable of far more than we typically expect. Homo erectus parenting embodied these principles intuitively, not from research, but from necessity. They needed children to develop competence quickly, and they created educational approaches that achieved this. Feel the confidence this early training created. By adolescence, Homo erectus young people were genuinely capable, able to contribute meaningfully to group survival, possessing skills that had been refined through years of practice. They weren't extended adolescents uncertain about their capabilities. They were young adults who'd proven themselves repeatedly, who knew their strengths, who understood they were competent survivors. Their teaching about danger was particularly sophisticated. Children learned to recognize and respect threats without becoming paralyzed by fear. They understood which animals were dangerous and how to avoid or respond to them. They knew which plants were toxic and how to identify them. They learned which environmental conditions were hazardous and how to prepare for them. This education wasn't fear-mongering, it was practical preparation for a dangerous world. Think about mortality rates among Homo erectus children, likely above 50% before age 5. This brutal reality meant that childhood education couldn't afford to be inefficient. The skills being taught were literally life or death important, and the teaching methods had been refined across generations to be as effective as possible. Those who learned well had better survival odds. Those who didn't often perished, tragically reinforcing the importance of thorough education. Modern parents might see Homo erectus childhood as harsh, perhaps even cruel, by contemporary standards. Where's the carefree play? Where's the protection from adult responsibilities? But from their perspective, preparing children thoroughly for survival was the deepest form of love. Protecting them from every difficulty would leave them vulnerable and incompetent when protection was no longer possible. Teaching them early and thoroughly gave them the best chance of surviving into adulthood. As you rest tonight, perhaps thinking about children in your life, remember that young humans are capable of remarkable competence when expectations and training are appropriate. The instinct to protect children is valuable, but the Homo erectus understanding that children need preparation for reality, that capability builds confidence, that learning through experience creates deep knowledge, these insights remain relevant. Every child alive today carries genetic potential developed across hundreds of thousands of years of childhood survival training. The children around the fire are settling into sleep now, their small bodies exhausted from a day of learning, playing, and practicing survival skills. Tomorrow they'll learn more, build more capability, develop more confidence. They're being prepared not for comfortable modern life, but for survival in an unforgiving world. Yet in their eyes, there's not fear, but engagement, not resentment, but pride. They're becoming competent, and they know it. They're learning to survive, and that knowledge gives them strength. Breathe gently. Remember your own childhood resilience. The ancient children survived impossible challenges, and their strength lives in every child born today. You probably know what season it is right now, and that knowledge might influence what you wear or whether you need an umbrella. But your survival doesn't depend on seasonal understanding. Climate control maintains comfortable temperature regardless of external conditions. Food stores remain stocked year-round with items from around the globe. Your life proceeds largely unchanged whether it's winter or summer, spring or fall. But for Homo erectus, seasons weren't background details. They were the fundamental organizing principle of existence, the rhythm that determined when to migrate, when to hunt specific animals, when to gather particular plants, when to prepare for scarcity or abundance. Imagine living so intimately with seasonal patterns that you can feel changes coming before obvious signs appear. You notice subtle shifts in animal behavior weeks before migration begins. You recognize plant changes that predict rainfall patterns. You read the angle of sunlight and length of days, understanding what these astronomical shifts mean for resource availability. This isn't calendar knowledge, it's embodied awareness developed through decades of observation, pattern recognition, refined across entire lifetimes. Picture the group's response as seasons change. Late summer means preparing for scarcity, gathering and preserving whatever food can be stored, Ensuring shelter is reinforced against coming storms, making certain tool stocks are adequate for the challenging months ahead. This isn't casual preparation, it's intensive work, driven by knowledge that winter's hardships could kill the unprepared. Everyone contributes based on capability, understanding that collective preparation means collective survival. Feel yourself participating in seasonal food preservation. Meat strips hang over smoky fires, slowly drying into jerky that can last months. Certain nuts and seeds are being gathered in large quantities, stored in protected locations that remain dry and cool. Plant roots are being harvested before ground freezes, collected in amounts that seem excessive until you remember that fresh food will be scarce for months. This work is exhausting but essential, the difference between surviving winter and starving during it. Watch as they select winter shelter sites with sophisticated understanding of seasonal patterns. The site might be perfect for summer, near water, open to breezes, spacious and comfortable. But winter requires different priorities. They need protection from harsh winds, positioning shelter where terrain blocks the worst weather. They need proximity to fuel sources since fire becomes critical for survival. They need areas where snow accumulation won't make travel impossible or shelter dangerous. Their site selection demonstrates deep understanding of how seasons transform landscapes. Their migration timing was based on accumulated knowledge spanning generations. Elders remembered from decades past when animal herds moved, when water sources became reliable or dried up, when plant foods became available in different regions. This temporal knowledge was precious. Migrating too early meant arriving before resources were available. Migrating too late meant missing optimal conditions or facing dangerous weather during travel. The timing windows were often narrow, and getting them wrong could be catastrophic. Think about the psychological preparation seasons required. Modern humans complain about weather changes, become depressed during dark winter months, struggle with seasonal transitions. We fight against seasonal patterns rather than adapting to them. But Homo Erectus accepted seasons as unchangeable reality, prepared practically and mentally for each season's challenges, maintained psychological stability through conditions that would break modern minds. Picture spring's arrival after a brutal winter. The first warming days, ice melting, plants emerging, animals returning from migration. The group's relief is profound. They've survived another winter, made it through months of scarcity and danger. This seasonal triumph gets celebrated, marked with special activities, recognized as genuine achievement. They understand that survival is never guaranteed, that each season survived represents success against real odds. Their understanding of microclimates within seasons was sophisticated. They knew that south-facing slopes warmed faster in spring, that certain valleys maintained moisture longer in summer drought, that specific areas provided better wind protection in winter. This spatial knowledge combined with temporal knowledge created comprehensive understanding of how to position themselves advantageously across seasonal changes. Watch as they time plant gathering with precision. This particular route is most nutritious in early spring, before the plant puts energy into above-ground growth. That fruit becomes edible only during a 2-week window in late summer. These seeds need to be collected immediately after pods open, but before they scatter in wind. Timing mistakes mean missing crucial foods entirely or gathering them when nutritional value is minimal. Their botanical calendar, carried entirely in memory, spanned hundreds of species and precise timing windows. Their breeding patterns show strategic seasonal understanding. Children born in late spring or early summer had better survival odds. They could grow through the abundant months, develop strength before facing winter's challenges. Births in late fall or winter faced immediate scarcity and cold, reducing survival probability. While they couldn't control conception timing with modern precision, they understood optimal birthing seasons, and cultural practices reflected this understanding. Feel the rhythm of seasonal existence. The way it creates natural structure without imposed schedules. You're not planning by arbitrary calendar dates, but by environmental cues that have proven reliable across generations. You're not fighting seasonal changes, but flowing with them, positioning yourself and your group to maximize advantages and minimize hardships. This creates a different relationship with time, cyclical rather than linear, embedded in nature rather than separate from it. Modern disconnection from seasons represents profound loss of environmental awareness. We eat strawberries in winter and pumpkin in spring, completely divorced from natural growing cycles. We maintain identical activity patterns year-round, ignoring seasonal rhythms that shaped human evolution. We've gained convenience but lost the deep embodied knowledge of environmental patterns that Homo erectus possessed. Think about seasonal mental health, an issue modern psychology increasingly recognizes. Humans seem to function better with seasonal variation, with natural cycles of activity and rest, with connection to environmental changes. Complete climate control, artificial lighting, imported foods, these create convenience but disconnect us from rhythms that our ancestors lived by for hundreds of thousands of years. The seasonal depression many modern humans experience might partially reflect this disconnection from natural patterns. As you rest tonight, perhaps noticing the season outside your window, remember that your body and mind evolved expecting seasonal variation, evolved to read environmental changes, evolved to adapt behavior based on cyclical patterns. Modern life has removed many seasonal pressures, but the instincts remain. When you feel energized by spring or contemplative in fall, when you crave different foods in different seasons, when you respond emotionally to changing day lengths, that's ancient seasonal wisdom speaking through your biology. The group around the fire is settling in, aware of the season surrounding them. Perhaps it's the abundant season and they rest easy knowing food is available. Perhaps it's the scarce season and they rest knowing they prepared adequately. Either way, they're synchronized with environmental rhythms, living within rather than against seasonal patterns. Tomorrow they'll respond to seasonal conditions, making decisions based on accumulated knowledge of how this particular season unfolds. They're seasonal masters, and that mastery keeps them alive. Breathe with the season's rhythm. Feel environmental patterns within you. The ancient ones lived by nature's calendar, and their seasonal wisdom flows through your cells. You are the success story. As you rest here tonight, comfortable and safe, you represent the culmination of an impossible journey. Every single Homo erectus ancestor you have, and you have millions of them stretching back across time, survived long enough to reproduce. Everyone faced dangers you'll never encounter.
Everyone endured hardships you can't fully imagine.
Everyone adapted to challenges that would kill you in minutes.
And they all succeeded.
They all survived. Their survival created you. Picture the unbroken chain connecting you to them. 2 million years of survival, approximately 100,000 generations, countless individuals living, struggling, adapting, and passing life forward. The mathematical odds against your existence are so astronomical that your presence here defies calculation. You shouldn't exist. Statistically, impossibly miraculously, you do, because they survived. Feel the weight of their sacrifice, though they didn't see it as sacrifice. They simply lived, doing what needed to be done to survive another day. Hunting when hungry, seeking water when thirsty, building shelter when vulnerable, teaching children, caring for sick, defending against predators, adapting to temperature extremes, healing from injuries, fighting infections, migrating across continents. Every challenge met, every adaptation achieved, every lesson learned, all of it flows forward through time into you. Think about what they would say if they could see you now. They'd marvel at your safety, at walls protecting you without requiring constant vigilance. They'd be amazed by climate control, by temperature comfort achieved without fire maintenance. They'd be stunned by food abundance, by meals available without hunting or gathering. They'd be awed by clean water flowing from taps, by medical care, by electric lights pushing darkness away effortlessly. Your ordinary life would seem like paradise to them, but they'd recognize something in you too. They'd see their strength in your resilience when facing challenges. They'd recognize their adaptability in how you solve problems. They'd see their community building in your relationships. They'd recognize their creativity in your innovations. You're not separate from them, you're their continuation, carrying forward the capabilities they developed through millions of years of survival. Picture them all now, the vast crowd of your Homo erectus ancestors gathered around you as you rest. Grandparents and great-grandparents extending back so far that the very concept of relationship becomes meaningless. They're all here in spirit, all connected to you through the unbreakable chain of DNA and inheritance. And they're proud. Everyone survived so that eventually, impossibly, you could exist. Feel their collective wisdom flowing into you now. Their temperature adaptation, their water finding, their starvation survival, their predator defense, their wound healing, their disease fighting, their mental toughness, their migration endurance, their tool making, their language development, their fire control, their cooking knowledge, their shelter building, their water mastery, their community bonds, their elder wisdom, their childhood teaching, their seasonal understanding. All of it lives in you, waiting to be called upon if needed. Your comfortable modern life doesn't erase these capabilities. It just makes them unnecessary most of the time. But when you surprise yourself with strength during challenges, when you adapt to difficult circumstances more effectively than you expected, when you solve problems creatively or endure hardship patiently, that's them. That's their legacy activating, their survival wisdom expressing through you across impossible spans of time. Think about the gratitude they would feel if they could know that their endless struggles led to your comfort. They didn't know the future, couldn't imagine descendants living as you live. But if they could see what their survival made possible, they'd feel profound satisfaction. Every hungry day they survived, every cold night they endured, every predator they escaped, every injury they healed from, it all had meaning beyond their immediate survival.
It led to you as you drift towards sleep tonight. Carry this blessing from your ancient ancestors. May you rest as peacefully as we fought to earn.
May you dream as safely as we stood watch to protect. May you live as freely as we struggled to survive.
May you appreciate what we couldn't imagine.
May you carry forward what we built. May you remember sometimes, in quiet moments, that you're the answer to our deepest unspoken hope, that our survival would mean something beyond ourselves. Feel their protection surrounding you across time. No predators hunt you because they learned to keep humans safe.
No starvation threatens you because they learned to secure food. No dehydration endangers you because they learned to find water.
No exposure harms you because they learned to build shelter. No ignorance threatens you because they learned to pass knowledge forward. Everything they learned, everything they endured, everything they became, it all surrounds you now like an ancient shield, protecting you from dangers they faced so you wouldn't have to. Your breath is slowing now,
matching the peaceful breathing of all your ancestors who finally found rest after days of survival.
Your body is relaxing completely, held safe by walls they made possible, warmed by knowledge they developed, nourished by techniques they perfected. You're so safe right now, safer than any Homo erectus ever experienced, safe enough to release all vigilance, all tension, all worry. You can sleep completely, something they rarely could. As consciousness fades and dreams begin, know that you're not alone. You're surrounded by millions of ancestors who watch over you still, who live on through you, who find peace in your peace. Their struggles are complete. Their survival succeeded. You're the proof that everything they endured had meaning. You're the destination they walked toward without knowing it existed.
You're the future they built without being able to imagine it. Sleep now, ancient survivor.
Sleep deeply and peacefully, protected by 2 million years of human adaptation, guarded by 100,000 generations of survival wisdom, held safe by ancestors who loved you before you existed.
They survived the impossible so you could rest in peace.
Honor them by accepting the comfort they earned for you. Dream beautifully. Tomorrow you carry their strength into a new day, but tonight you simply rest in the safe world their survival created. May ancient fires warm your dreams. May ancestral wisdom guide your sleep. May prehistoric love surround your rest. You are their wildest dream come true, their greatest success, their immortality. Sleep now in the peace they died to create. Sleep deeply in the safety they fought to build. Sleep completely, knowing you're held forever in the ancient circle where all humans belong. Good night, survivor. The ancient ones are proud of you. Rest in their eternal blessing.